nobody stopping me. Nobody stopping me. Nobody stopping me. Nobody stopping me. Nobody stopping me.
I try to erase you, but you're written in ink. I really can't face you, but you're all that I see. It just makes me mad that I want you back, but I can't stop thinking about it. I'm stuck living without it. That look on your face, how it made me feel safe. Now I can't stop thinking about it, but I'm better off without it. Ooh, we were never destined to live inside this tension. Call us a learning lesson. Ooh, 'cause there's a better me at the end of all these feelings. Call us a learning lesson. Everything's clearer when you're not in the way. But in the mirror, I still see your face. It just makes me mad that I want you back, but I can't stop thinking about it. I'm stuck living without it. That look on your face, how it made me feel safe. Now I can't stop thinking about it, but I'm better off without it. Ooh, we were never destined to live inside this tension. Call us a learning lesson. Ooh, 'cause there's a better me at the end of all these feelings. Call us a learning lesson. I'm trying, I'm finding, I think I'll be alright. Just give me time. I'm trying, I'm finding, I think I'll be alright. Just give me time. I'm trying, I'm finding, I think I'll be alright. Just give me time. I'm trying, I'm finding, I think I'll be alright. Just give me time. Ooh, we were never destined to live inside this tension. Call us a learning lesson. Ooh, 'cause there's a better me at the end of all these feelings.
Welcome everyone. We are live with Kart Rider Drift League Preseason 2. We're already at the last day here waiting for the team match finals. My name is Will Cho, joined by Peter. And it's taken a long journey, but we're finally down to the 2 teams.
Absolutely, you can say that again. It's been such a long journey here, about a month of KDL Preseason 2, and now we've gone through the postseason. Finally, it's the team match finals where the first place is going to be decided, and we have an exciting rivalry even between the 2 teams here today.
Yeah, of course, if you've been following along, you know that the storyline of Liiv SANDBOX versus KWANGDONGFREECS continues. However, of course, coming into the KDL, it has been a bit one-sided. We'll get to that here in a bit. Just as a reminder, if you haven't watched a team match finals yet, here it's the same as Preseason 1. We have 3 phases. So basically, you have 2 full team match matches in Phase 1 and Phase 2, both speed, item, and a potential ace match. And then if they trade blows in Phases 1 and 2, we go to a unique King of the Hill style 1v1 ace match in Phase 3, where eventually you will have to knock out all 4 of the opponent's racers in a 1v1 match to claim that trophy.
I am so excited to potentially see that Phase 3 happen today. It is a team match finals exclusive. And in the previous season where KWANGDONGFREECS and Liiv SANDBOX, they met in the finals, we didn't actually get to that King of the Hill because it was KWANGDONGFREECS that won 2-0 in the Phase 2 before we could get to that Phase 3.
Yeah, of course, just as a note, I mean, even then, it wasn't that one-sided though, right? It still went to the ace match both times. But now coming into Preseason 2, it's looked even more one-sided in favor of the KWANGDONGFREECS. They only met once during the round robin, but KWANGDONGFREECS wins pretty handily here.
Yeah, I mean, 3-1 is definitely a result we can say is pretty handy because a lot of the times we go to the round 5, especially between 2 teams that are really evenly matched in skills, but it didn't really happen this time.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the highlights as well, just to refresh our memory. And right off the bat, I mean, Liiv SANDBOX, they've been tinkering with a couple of these WKC circuit maps. However, if you're gonna play on a circuit like this, you need your runners like Byungsu to be able to get in the lead first and be able to keep it. And whenever Liiv SANDBOX, whenever they go through a couple of these defeats, it's really because Byungsu's not able to keep that lead early on in the first lap.
Absolutely. It's like Neil, he really needed some support to stay up in the top 4, but as you can see just in this replay here, Hyunsu and Byungsu, once they were locked down into that 7th and 8th, it was really hard for the Liiv SANDBOX runners up in the front to get much job done.
Yeah, meanwhile, I mean, it wasn't all doom and gloom on the side of Liiv SANDBOX. Of course, we did see that it was a 3-1 scoreline in both speed and item mode. And a lot of it comes down to Neil, especially here in Preseason 2. He's really returned to form in terms of I'll even go through and play a bit more aggressively in these team matches to make sure I secure that win for my team, really putting on the pressure and forcing out these errors from the KWANGDONGFREECS racers. So on the side of KWANGDONGFREECS, it's more about you're always going to be in the front. They've always been very good about keeping that lead, but they can't get too complacent.
Yeah, absolutely. The stats overall so far, KWANGDONGFREECS, they've won 4 times against the Liiv SANDBOX that they played in all the preseasons, counting Preseason 1 as well. So Liiv SANDBOX are kind of the underdogs coming in, but in Kart Rider League, they were actually the usually more dominant team over KWANGDONGFREECS.
Yeah, and now here's the thing, is that the ace matches as well, right? I mean, both teams, they have such storied racers. However, if already here in Kart Rider Drift, it's looking so one-sided that even if you traded blows in speed and item mode, KWANGDONGFREECS 4-0 so far. World single-handedly taking apart all these speed aces that Liiv SANDBOX throws at him. Even in the finals of Preseason 1, he takes down both Neil and Insu once each in Phase 1 and 2. That's the biggest question mark today for Liiv SANDBOX.
That right there is exactly why we like to highlight World as one of the best ace match players we have here in KDL. And just as you put it, Will, I feel like Neil, he's been struggling in the ace matches as far as Preseason 1 went. But here in Preseason 2, Neil won all of the ace matches that he's played in. So a rematch will be exciting.
Yeah, and take a look at the tendencies of each team when it comes to team speed mode. Now, we do see some very, very clear differences. First of all, one thing that really comes to mind for me is looking at Desert Construction Chaos. This is a must pick for KWANGDONGFREECS. However, Liiv SANDBOX, this is a must ban for them, and they will have that advantage of choosing speed or item priority when it comes to Phase 1 since they came through the upper bracket.
It feels like when you look at this chart that Liiv SANDBOX does have an advantage in the sense that they have 2 tracks in World Tour Terracotta Twister as well as New York Rally where they've performed really well already here in Preseason 2. Whereas for Glacier Extreme Stadium, both teams have shown great proficiency there. Both teams playing more than 5 matches with great win rates.
Yeah, Terracotta Twister is the interesting one because because Guangdong Freaks, they generally looked pretty strong on it during Preseason 1 as well, and you can see that they continue to pick it even coming into Preseason 2. However, we've definitely noticed quite a few mistakes from a couple of the racers, similar to how sometimes they look when they go into some of the other tracks on the mine theme. So this is something that we'll have to wonder, is it just something that Guangdong Freaks had to brush up on? Is it a focus problem, or is it simply that Liiv SANDBOX is looking a lot more dominant on that track?
I feel like, honestly, as the KDL went on, the sweepers just got more comfortable, which is why we're seeing a lot of those mistakes come out.
Yeah, well, moving on to item mode as well, of course, you do have to go through both speed and item mode in these team matches. And these are looking at the first place finishes of each of the team's racers. So we can take a look that both Delta and World, they're kind of the ones that each team is looking to send across the finish line to secure these wins in item mode.
Dalda has been such a huge pickup for Liiv SANDBOX this season. He's been performing out of his mind in the item matches. And of course, World is being kind of like that item ace for Guangdong Freaks because they don't actually have one, but they don't need one when World is playing this good.
Yeah, and for Liiv SANDBOX, Dalda, one of the reasons he's able to secure so many first world finishes is because he actually has an amazing success rate in terms of defenses, right? He uses those shields, the defensive items very, very well. So if he can get into position or even sometimes really set up so that he can cross the finish line, overtake some of the opponents, it's going to be crucial. But I like that you mentioned that, right? Guangdong Freaks, again, known for having the 4-man roster, and it starts to show even in item mode, they're pretty well spread apart. They're okay with just kind of trading places as they go. They'll adapt, whereas Liiv SANDBOX are definitely much more reliant on their item ace of Dalda.
I love that you pointed that out, Will, because as you said, Guangdong Freaks, they're all about consistency, whereas Liiv SANDBOX, it feels like their ceiling can sometimes be higher even than Guangdong Freaks, but whether or not we will get that top performance from our players today, that's going to be the key factor of today's matchup.
Yeah, also, I mean, looking at stats like these, curious, right? Guangdong Freaks, surely they look at the same numbers, and I wonder if they're going to target Dalta a bit. Now, this is one of the more memorable tracks that Liiv SANDBOX has had. It was in the upper bracket finals in the item round. I mean, forcing all the other racers to retire, right? And just making sure that it's a clean win for yourself, for your team on Mine Magma Cavern. And this happens because this is one of those tracks that we like to talk about where it's very narrow, right? So you really have to ride along the sides of the track. Just going for these single target attacks like the missiles, you know, or the water wisps, it's not going to be enough. You really want to focus on that AoE, the water bombs, things like the lightning bolts. And clearly that came to fruition when they played it in the upper bracket finals.
And the fact that Liiv SANDBOX was able to pull off this all-retire victory against a team like Seongnam Rocks, who has been showing such a better form here in Preseason 2 than Preseason 1, speaks volumes, because if they can pull that off against Rocks, they surely can against the likes of Guangdong Freaks. So Dalda is absolutely the key player that we gotta keep our eyes on in the item mode.
Yeah, I mean, again, also obviously a track like this, wonder if it will come up as well. It just, you run so much of a risk if you're not used to, if you're not really in tune. This isn't a track where you can just say, hey, if we end up switching places, like I'll use these items. You really have to have a better plan going into lap 2 and 3 to make sure that you don't lose that momentum. Also, we should note, Guangdong Freaks eventually, they kind of switched over to that top speed meta in item mode. And this is one of those tracks where you may not be able to keep that if attacks keep flying in from the side of Liiv SANDBOX. Now, we hinted at it earlier, but one of the biggest points of the matchup today, it's going to come down to that ace match.
Oh my goodness, just looking at this, it's already making me hyped because you take a look at Neil, who he really struggled in Preseason 1 against Guangdong Freaks, especially losing to World and Cool. But here in Preseason 2, he was actually able to step it up, especially in Mine Winding Slopes, where he suffered a lot of the losses in Preseason 1. So you know Neil has overcame that slump, and he's looking for that win today.
Yeah, now I will just say, right, you know, nothing against some of the racers that Neil has beaten here in Preseason 2, but, you know, in Preseason 1, it was against all these Guangdong Freaks racers, and then Preseason 2, it's not necessarily of the exact same caliber. So
hey, but there's Looning.
I know Looning, you know, did end up winning the solo matches, but here's the thing, that was also a 3-man race, and what was impressive there was actually Neil playing very aggressively right off the start. He basically knocked Hero out of the race single-handedly off the bat, where only 2 out of the 3 races would be able to move on, so Neil securing his spot that way. Curious to see if this happens again, you know, coming in, if Neil's going to show him return to form even in the 1v1s, because that has plagued him so far here in 2023. Now, Mine Winding Slopes, also generally a track that Guangdong Freaks actually doesn't enjoy, but when it comes to 1v1s, they seem a lot more stable because you're not worried about too many collisions in the middle of the track.
And that stability you mentioned is absolutely one of the focus that I've known Neil to have coming into preseason 2, where we're seeing less of the Neil builds coming out when unnecessary. He's trying to play more consistent and sticking to the usual builds. So it feels like the aggression, we've seen that really pay off sometimes, but the big risk to it is what makes players kind of avoid it at times.
Yeah, so we took a look at some of these highlights. I think one of the biggest thing, again, is because in Phase 1, Liiv Sandbox should have that advantage of picking priority. Curious, do you take that speed priority? Do you continue to ban out that Desert Construction Chaos? Because Kwangdong Freaks looks very strong on that track.
I would take speed if it was up to me, because speed, it feels like the one place where you have to win, whereas item, you kind of know it can go either way, more based on things like what items you're able to pick up. But speed, it all comes down to your own skills and teamwork, so I would like that priority being chosen by Liiv Sandbox.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, of course, they also have that item ace, so surely they are able to maybe really focus on item mode separately a bit more, where the item ace can come up with their own strategies and calls and, maybe even track preferences. So curious to see what that tendency is going to be, but I agree with you, Peter. I mean, I think you definitely take speed priority. I think just because of statistics, no matter how good you think you are against each other, no point in taking that risk, right, of playing a track that you're not just doing well in currently in this preseason 2. And then also you'll be able to secure one of the tracks, maybe like Terracotta Twister, that Kwangdong Freaks has not been performing as well on.
I would love to see Terracotta Twister come out. It's been such a popular track. We've seen it time and time again, but it feels like every time we go onto that track, there's a different result. A team that has been doing well on it, as soon as they start messing up and, fumbling, crashing into the walls during the tomb section, it could spell doom for them.
Yeah, and again, like you said, it's part of that sweeping, getting more comfortable, and also just in general, even runners starting to play a bit more aggressively, forcing errors out of each other. I mean, not necessarily getting into collisions, but kind of hinting at it so that the person who's leading has to maybe take a bit of an outer line, or maybe change their build just a bit, and then maybe they run out of the boost right in the last second when it's necessary, things like that. So there is a lot of that mental game. Hopefully we can take a deeper look at that during the live races today, because we are going to have quite a few. Again, minimum 2 phases of the team matches going through speed, item, and then potential aces. And then if they trade blows in those first 2 phases, we go to phase 3. That will be a King of the Hill solo ace match. But now it's time to meet the racers we introduced on screen. It's time to bring them onto the stage for the grand finals of KDL Preseason 2.
We are super excited to bring some of the best that made it here to the team match finals for you guys. And first up is going to be Liiv Sandbox.
Liiv Sandbox. I mean, this is the Invincible Armada coming out. Sure, they had some roster changes that they had to deal with. They had to put up Hyunsu as a new captain ever since Seungha and Insu had to go to their mandatory military service. And a lot of people said, will you be able to recover from that? Won't you need more time to remain this strong? And they said no. And they proved it absolutely, because they go to the grand finals here today from the upper bracket.
Yeah, I mean, Liiv Sandbox, this is like the dream come true for any team out there. Going through such a big rebuilding between seasons is a point of concern, but for Liiv Sandbox, they've only performed well ever since this happened. Now they're coming in as the upper seed in this matchup today.
Yeah, my eyes are on Pyeongsu, right? He was one of the new recruits on that speed mode as that speed ace. If he can keep that lead early on, Liiv Sandbox, they might have one of the easier races they had today. But of course, their opponents, no one to laugh at. And rivalry as old as time between these two teams. However, this year, Kwangdong Freaks trying to prove that the rivalry is no more, and it's clearly one-sided in favor of KDF.
It was definitely one-sided before in Preseason 1, where Kwangdong Freaks was able to pick up their team match championship. So now coming into Preseason 2 as the defending champions, they want to defend that honor and once again be able to pull off a 2-season win back-to-back.
I mean, listen, the defending champions, they were at risk of potentially not making the grand finals. That's how tough it's been for them here in Preseason 2. They were not as dominant. I mean, they weren't dominant at all, quite frankly, during the round robin. They got pushed all the way down, where they had to climb all the way back up through the lower bracket here in the playoffs to get to the grand finals, to meet Liiv Sandbox once again. And Kwangdong Freaks trying to say you only have to win the races that matter. Now we're going to have an interview with the two teams, and we'll get to hear from them. We will translate for you these questions and answers live.
Hello, Neil, in Chinese.
재미있어요.
Are you having fun? Yes, I am having fun.
사실
그렇습니다.
No, to be honest, I must tell you, when it comes to team match skills, the player that improved one of the most in preseason 2 has to be you, Neil. And on top of that, you were able to win 3 ace matches back to back. And it feels like you just improved in the team matches so much. What do you think has changed the most?
大家都评价你是团体赛中成长最快的选手，并且你在团体赛的单挑局中也拿到了3连胜的好成绩。对于这点，你有什么看法呢？
这个赛季的进步要归功于队友们对我的教导，以及3位已经离开的选手，他们也在离开之后给了我很多的鼓励，所以我才会进步。
To be honest, in the team matches, speaking of our growth, my teammates, they were giving me a lot of good feedback, and not just the teammates, but Insu and Seunga, as well as our older brother Seungtae, they gave a lot of really useful feedback to us, so they were key in my growth. So you have so many good friends who are helping you out here in KDL, and I must ask you now, from what I know, you guys have fantastic teamwork and you guys can communicate very well as well. Do you still have some words that are hard to hear?
赛季不只是成长得很快，而且在语言沟通方面也是没有任何问题的。刚刚也提到了复盘上，大家给你很多指导。那目前对你来说，在生活中还有哪些沟通起来很困难的部分吗？
现在的话，基本上日常生活的沟通以及游戏内的沟通都没有 太大的问题了，但在非常短的时间内要去集中的听一个单字，我觉得这个是对我来讲还需要再努力进步的部分。
To be honest, as far as outside of the game and inside of the game, there's no problems in communicating. But when my teammates speak to me very fast, then it can be hard to understand particular words. Yeah, I relate to that because you are using your native language for your fans, but when you speak Korean, I can understand you pretty well. And you guys met KWANGDONGFREECS again here in the finals. I know you're a very gentle player, usually Neil, but this is the finals, so you have to say something to your opponents here.
但是平时我们也都知道你是一个很绅士、很有风度的选手，但在这样的场合中，你能说一些打击到对方气势的狠话吗？
好，잠시만요. 5초만요. 생각 중이에요.
Wait a minute, I just need 5 seconds to think.
虽然我们在这个赛季交手过一次，而且输了，但是我们是不会再输第2次的。这一次我们会把所有失去的要回来。
Oh, it sounds very strong. We've met before in the previous season, but this time we will not lose again. So we got to hear an answer from Neil on that, but now next up we have to introduce Spear from KWANGDONGFREECS. From Preseason 1, the name Spear has left so many plays in our memories. So many highlights were made on the back of your plays. How do you feel about today's finals? Can we see more of that today? Well, I didn't create those clutch moments on purpose, but they just happened to happen. So if it comes out today as well, I will make them happen. And there's another thing that we're curious about. You said that you didn't really intend for those clutch plays to happen, but I feel like based on your performance, it's time for you to maybe come out in the ace matches. Only Spear, you didn't come out from KWANGDONGFREECS in ace matches. Can we see you today? I'm not really sure if I will come out, but I can definitely see myself going on the ace match today. Neil said that he's not going to lose twice to the same opponents. What can you say back to Neil and Liiv SANDBOX? We have memories of losing to Liiv SANDBOX from a long time ago. Today we will make sure we win this time. Yeah, when we hear Spear talk like that, saying they're not going to lose this time, we need to hear now from the captain of Liiv SANDBOX. You used to be the youngest member, Hyunsu, and now you became the captain. How... You must not have only good memories about your opponents. How's your confidence today against KWANGDONGFREECS? We prepare really hard, so we're very confident, and we want to get rid of the memory of losing in Preseason 1. So out of all of the most memorable moments here in KDL, the All Retire stands out as one of those moments. And how about today? Do you guys think that you'll be able to repeat it All Retire? In the scrims, we have a lot of All Retires in item mode, so we are going to make that happen again today, potentially. And we actually heard that Insu is in the crowd today. Where is he? Let's find him. Okay, he's over there. Insu is here to cheer on the team Liiv SANDBOX. And usually Insu has played such a key role in your team. But now as the new captain of Liiv SANDBOX, are you going to take the energy of Insu? And what can you say to Insu? We lost before, but we prepared very hard. I don't feel like it's strong enough. Insu is here right now on the camera. We're gonna win both one phase and phase number 2 and not go to a phase 3. Okay, so now Hyunsu gave us a much stronger worded statement. Insu seems like he might have said something even stronger there. So now moving on to our player world here. KWANGDONGFREECS, you guys are the defending champions, but it was really hard to get here to the team match finals in Preseason 2. There were so much more losses in the preseason. Yeah, it was really hard for us to get here in the team match finals, but I feel like we grew more as a team during this process, so I feel like those losses are going to be actually helpful to us. Yeah, all the fans believe in you guys, the KWANGDONGFREECS. We can see so many cheerfuls cheer you guys on. And when it comes to ace matches, World, you stand out as a player. But as of recent, talking about the full leagues, you know, things were not looking the best this time. So there's some concerns around that. How do you feel about this finals this time, World? Well, for 1v1, I'm good at it, so I don't really have too much to say. I feel like we're going to win again this time with a 2-0, not going to phase 3. Seems like World is saying, you just don't need to be nervous. Yes, that's right. As long as I'm not nervous, we'll make it. Looking at Hyunsu, he gave a very strong word because of Insu today. So now you must say something back to Liiv SANDBOX. Today we will just win and give you guys the 5th loss consecutively. Okay, so we got to hear a nice statement here from World, and we are now ready to begin our last match of Preseason 2. Let's see which team will win today in the finals.
Thanks so much for the interview translations. That was Peter during the opening ceremony. I will be interpreting and translating the interviews for the awards ceremony at the end of the show later today. But yeah, a couple, neat little segments there. I love the fact that we have Neil continuing to go through these interviews, of course, in his mother language. Although, like they said, he can very well understand basically a lot of the interview questions and respond in Korean as well. While we wait for the players to take their seats, now we are taking a look at the predictions. We got viewer predictions and then team predictions. And I am a little surprised that KWANGDONGFREECS is still leading in viewer predictions along with team predictions as well, even though they're coming up from the lower bracket final.
We talked about that before as well, Will, and definitely it feels like, to me at least, that when it comes to a matchup between Liiv SANDBOX and KWANGDONGFREECS, it has to be evenly matched, like right down the middle, 50-50, but our fans, they feel like KWANGDONGFREECS are going to most likely win. So do the teams here in KDL, so maybe it's just the form of the defending champion in play here.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think it's probably also just because in the head-to-head between these two teams, Liiv SANDBOX, again, yet to beat KWANGDONGFREECS here in 2023. So see if they can overcome that bit of trauma there, because no matter how good you look, Liiv SANDBOX, they continue to suddenly look weaker and a little bit more scared when they go up against the KWANGDONGFREECS. But also to note, it looks like Sensation, Showtime, and ROX Esports, Seongnam ROX, they all predicted 2-0, albeit for different teams. Whereas we have Aura, Seraphic, and Potential saying this is probably going to a Phase 3 King of the Hill Ace match.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see that 3 teams here actually said it's going to be a 2-0 win, whereas also 3 other teams are saying they're going to go to a phase 3. And you have to wonder, is it really based off of actual probabilities, or do we just want to see a phase 3 for once?
Well, I think it's more so probably our Seraphim and Potential. They're probably saying, really, it wouldn't be weird if either team wins, right? But if it got to the 1v1s, just because, I mean, they talked about the interview as well. We've seen all of the members except for Spear on the side of Kwangdong Freaks come out and win their ace matches before against different racers. So you probably have to raise their hand, which, you know what, I'm inclined to agree if it goes to that point. I think Kwangdong Freaks has just proven so far in Kartrider Drift that they are a bit more well accustomed to the 1v1 scenario. Whereas, I mean, Liiv Sandbox, if you can win the first 2 phases right away, then that's how you're going to secure that trophy. So I agree with kind of how that might go through, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course, for phase 1, it is going to be Liiv Sandbox who has the advantage of choosing priority as they come in from the upper bracket.
That is going to be a huge advantage, especially in such a close matchup like this. And we were talking earlier about how we would love to see Liiv Sandbox take speed priority, and we're gonna, before we get into that, of course, we need to first take a look at the team stats overall for Liiv Sandbox, and the average ranking is not that great, which is the point of concern. Hyunsu and Byungsu, they're the 2 main runners. They want to secure the 1-2, and they need to repeat that today.
Yeah, I mean, for a team that came in as, of course, that first seed, right, and able to continue on through the upper bracket here to the grand finals, you're going to want better numbers there. And just a little shout out to all of their older racers that are currently out of the team, you know, going to military service and things like that. So Seungtae, Insu, and Seungha. Of course, Insu in the arena today. We had Seungha visiting and cheering them on just a couple days ago last week. So nice to see that they're able to take a bit of holiday. And I do believe, actually, in that first row, that might be Neil's family. I saw them talking with Neil today before getting ready for the matches, but they were talking, so I didn't want to interrupt them, but I want to guess that that might be Neil's family visiting as well to watch him play here in the grand finals of Preseason 2.
We have such a nice, tightly knit community here. We love seeing them come to support their favorite teams, and of course, the opponents for Liiv Sandbox here is Kwangdong Freeks. And the reason why I pointed out the speed average ranks earlier for Liiv Sandbox is because on the side of Kwangdong Freeks, it is looking even overall. Every single player here can play to win in the 1-2 win conditions.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when you have someone like World who's able to constantly get that podium finish, it's going to be tough to try to overtake them with just a bit of an average speed rank. Of course, Kwangdong Freeks taking this chance to just give a shout out to all of their fans. I mean, that support is what brought them up from the lower bracket of the playoffs here to come up to the grand finals to try to defend their title. And ladies and gentlemen, we will be getting ready for phase 1 here in just a second. We will be doing the track drafts live, the map bans and picks live as we do in the postseason and the playoffs. And it looks like it is going to be that speed mode draft first. And yes, Liiv Sandbox will take speed mode priority. They are going to select their first track and then get their first ban as well. So I gotta imagine, I mean, surely in phase 1, you just go with stock standard, get that Terracotta Twister. You've been looking so good on it, and the opponents, quite frankly, haven't been looking as strong.
Oh, interestingly enough, Liiv Sandbox are switching it up. Instead of Terracotta Twister, they're taking WKC Japan Circuit, which, yes, is a track that they've picked quite a lot as well, but it's just really surprising to see Terracotta Twister being available to be banned out by Kwangdong Freeks.
Well, I gotta imagine maybe it's also the fact that, I mean, Terracotta Twister is not a track that Kwangdong Freeks usually bans out either, so just letting that go through for a later point. Now, that does mean Kwangdong Freeks, they will ban out World Tour New York Rally, and then round 2, right away, we go to another track that both teams are so confident in. They are neck and neck. You can see it in the win rate as well when it goes to Glacier Extreme Stadium.
That is going to be a not too much of a surprising pickup here. If anything, it's just surprising that it was picked on very early by Kwangdong Freeks, given that it is a track that we could have easily seen Liiv Sandbox pick up as well. But for the next pick for Liiv Sandbox, you have to wonder, is Terracotta Twister going to come up? No, it's actually going to be 4 Zigzag Timberland.
All right, so just letting Terracotta Twister sit all the way to the end. And maybe just giving respect as well. But no, it's actually going to be Liiv Sandbox banning that out. Away from the track list themselves. So a bit of a switch up here from Liiv Sandbox, you know, not going by the stats, and this could very well actually be a bit of a curveball over to Kwangdong Freeks. And I wonder if Liiv Sandbox maybe just trying to pigeonhole them into some other tracks in the later rounds as well, rather than going to tracks that historically both teams have shown a lot of strengths in.
And as a response to that, Guangdong Freaks, they ban out Mine 3 shortcuts, as well as picking up Village Boom Hill Tunnel. And Village Boom Hill Tunnel has been a track that Guangdong Freaks played a lot throughout the season, so it is no surprise there.
Yeah, Boom Hill Tunnel, not a big surprise. Ooh, and Factory Facility 5, if we go to round 5, that's a track we love to see as that, bit of a tiebreaker track. Curious to see if we get there at all. Liiv SANDBOX yet to play it here in Preseason 2. Also, personally, not surprised at the Mine 3 shortcuts being banned out by Kwangdong Freeze. That's a track that, they haven't minded playing on it. However, it has plagued them just a bit, just because some of those shortcuts, it can really mess you up if you take the wrong angle, and then maybe you're getting collided into even the lava and things like that. So that will be taken out here for Phase 1. Of course, we will have to go through the item mode draft as well.
That was a really quick speed mode draft phase, so I feel like both teams really came in with their strategies completely locked into their brains. And now, of course, for the item mode, we have to wonder, what is the track that Guangdong Freaks is going to first pick here? And one that stands out to me is potentially Factory Brody's Gloom, because they played so much in it. However, Guangdong Freaks, they take Mine Magma Cavern.
And this is one, again, this is that track that Liiv SANDBOX, they made that historical all-retire happen in the previous round of the playoffs in the upper bracket final. So Kwangdong Freaks is taking the fight right to him and say, hey, we're just as good on that track before we see the first bans come out. Clock Tower Crossing and Cogwheel Crush being eliminated right away.
Yep, the Clock Tower Crossing ban. I really like that one because I feel like Clock Tower Crossing is such a hard track to play. There's so much different things that can happen that you can't control at all times, whereas Liiv SANDBOX, their first pick for item is going to be Desert Sphinx's Riddle, followed by Guangdong Freaks responding with Mine Mother Lode.
Yeah, and, in the item mode so far, we're just basically seeing kind of tracks that both teams seem fairly comfortable with when it comes to these win rates. I'm not going to see as drastic of a difference, neither team necessarily shining way far above the other. I would say Guangdong Freaks also slowly catching up to the item meta here in Preseason 2, as we do see Pharaoh's Pass and Shark's Wake being banned out. Now, Shark's Wake, definitely one of those tracks that we eventually see banned out by the teams who think they have a bit more finesse when it comes to that item mode.
Absolutely, and Liiv SANDBOX are going to go ahead and pick Glacier Polar Halfpipe for their last track, and Guangdong Freaks rounding it out in the round 5 with a Forest Mushroom Caves pickup.
Okay, so we will have a chance to review these right before we go into each mode, but this is the draft done for Phase 1. Now, just as a reminder, whoever wins Phase 1, right, going through the speed and item mode potential ace match, they will then have the advantage to choose priority going into Phase 2. Curious to see if Liiv SANDBOX will be able to keep that advantage, go into Phase 2, and try to take initiative on the draft once again.
I mean, we would love to see it here. Of course, Liiv SANDBOX, they clearly came in today to the team match finals with the mindset that they're going to win in speed first and then hopefully win an item. If not, they have to rely on the ace match. But for that plan to work, first, Liiv SANDBOX, they need to win speed.
Yeah, and they bring it to WKC Japan Circuit first. Now, this is a track that they picked quite often throughout the Preseason 2 so far. First picked it twice even, and this is one that Kwangdong Freaks, they've been banning out, right? And they, they do eventually take a win on it when someone else picked it. However, now my big question is, last time they faced each other in the round robin, they played a race on WKC Singapore Circuit, and that was when we checked out that highlight where Byung-Soo just wasn't able to recover, get back into that runner position. Here's to see if Liiv SANDBOX has a different plan here for Japan Circuit.
Yeah, despite what you mentioned about Liiv SANDBOX potentially struggling in some of those WKC circuits, there hasn't been too much emphasis being placed really around banning WKC circuits, nor really picking them up from the Guangdong Freaks, which is a strategy that we have seen here time and time again in Preseason 2. So I love that both teams really are sticking to that concept that they brought in here today to the team match finals. But now we are ready for round 1, and it's going to be held in WKC Japan Circuit.
The countdown hits 0, and we begin the grand finals of KDL Preseason 2. Liiv SANDBOX versus Kwangdong Freaks. Once again, Phase 1, the very first round of speed mode here on Japan Circuit.
And as we take a look at the standings overall right now, it is definitely good to see Byung-Soo up in the front with Neil. So the 1-2 formation for Liiv SANDBOX is definitely there to contest in the later phases. Whereas Kwangdong Freeks, they do have Spear stuck in the 8th place.
Yeah, and this so far, in terms of just pure standings, is a pretty good look for Liiv SANDBOX because Spear is often that racer who can really turn things up when he goes into sweeping mode, and just keeping him on that tail. It's up to Hyunsoo to make sure that Spear can't get up to the middle of the pack to start to mess up the rest of his teammates.
Absolutely, and right now we see Sungbin, he's holding on to that first place pretty firmly. World coming in to play the sweeper role to take Byung-Soo out of his lines, and it's doing a phenomenal job here so far. However, Liiv SANDBOX, Neil and Hyunsoo with a nice recovery.
Yeah, we did see Jimin go right into the wall, going around that first curve here on lap 2. So Jimin pretty much locked in 8th place, and this is something that Liiv SANDBOX cannot afford. They can't go into the 2nd and 3rd laps already at a disadvantage, because now all pressure is on Hyunsoo, Byung-Soo, and Neil to try to contest 3 out of the first 4 slots.
The one nice thing in WKC Japan circuit is that if you are falling behind, you can actually utilize that to take some pressure off yourself, build more boost gauge instead, so hopefully Jimin's able to catch up. So far, Hyunsoo and Neil, they're trying to secure at least that 1-2 win condition.
Yeah, Byung-Soo falling all the way behind as well, though, and again, this is what we warned against. However, point-wise, Liiv SANDBOX still in decent position. They still have 3 racers contesting for the first 4 spots, and while Sungbin able to defend that first place spot for now, Hyunsoo, Jimin, and Neil, if they can get something like a 2-3-4, they should be able to get this win.
Ooh, I love the coordination right now between Hyunsoo and Neil. They were coming in together to take 1-2. However, right now, Hyunsoo, he wins the trade against Spear, and now he's looking to try to overtake Sungbin, but Sungbin is like an iron wall in his defense, and Kwangdong Freeks are just gonna finalize their 1-2 victory.
You know, it's insane that Kwangdong Freeks, they choose to go for this play at the end, because quite frankly, Liiv SANDBOX, it looked like they had this in the bag until they just send Spear into the inner track, avoid any collisions, just keep up his top speed. And Sungbin says, I will be able to block these guys out. We will secure 1-2. Because if they didn't secure the 1-2, it was actually going to go right over to Liiv SANDBOX. I mean, this was a very strict and tight win condition because World and Cool were locked down in 6th and 7th place.
That was absolutely the focus for both teams here today in Japan circuit. Both teams kept trying to go for that 1-2, and it was really highly contested. It feels like the positions in 1, 2, 3, 4 kept changing between the two teams, but in the final moment there, Kwangdong Freeks, they came out on top with the better focus.
Yeah, we're taking a look right at the ending here. So look at Spear. He just barely cuts the grass here and make sure he can continue that boost. Meanwhile, Sungbin completely blocks out Hyunsoo. He knows that because Neil went way too far out, that top speed-wise, he shouldn't be overtaken, or at least he's banking on it. Blocks out Hyunsoo as well. And what a dramatic finish here in the very first round of Phase 1 in the Grand Finals between these two teams. But it's long from over. We go right to round 2 of Speed Mode here in the first phase. It is going to go to Glacier Extreme Stadium.
We kickstart our team finals round 2 of Speed here in Kwangdong Freeks' track of choice, and Cool is holding the best record, so Kwangdong Freeks, I'm expecting to see some sharp plays from them.
Once again,
my
World
bro.
already kind of getting spun out of control there because of the pressure actually from the outer line of Hyunsoo, and this is by far the cleanest start that Liiv SANDBOX has had. Just a dominant lead right up front, and you can see Spear, he's going to go for these swift cuts coming out of the tunnel just to make sure he can build up a bit more boost to catch up. Because we have a lot of twists and turns and of course the hairpins near the end, there is a chance, but you don't want to catch up by using all your boosts. You want to just use the track to your advantage to catch up, then use your own boost to contest for it in the important moments at the end of each lap.
This is such an ideal scenario right now for Liiv SANDBOX. They have 1, 2, 3 players up in the top, and Hyunsoo, he's really just trying to build some more lead as much as possible here in lap number 1, but as we get to lap 2, Hyunsoo, he's just going to switch over to that sweeper role. All Jimin needs to do is catch up to the middle of the pack and do some sweeping himself.
Now here's the thing, Spear, yeah, he was playing very aggressively, even coming off the jump. His build gets a little wobbled because he's trying to build a little bit more boost, but it comes to an advantage. Hyunsoo was trying to defend so passively, and Spear's able to overtake him. However, it's still the 1-2 punch of Neil and Byung-Soo. And if Neil can make sure he supports Byung-Soo, where Byung-Soo just has to focus on his own build, Liiv SANDBOX, they should feel safe.
However, Kwangdong Freeks, they're catching up right now like a pack of lions here in 3-4. Spear and Sungbin looking to catch up. However, it's really hard to catch up to the 1-2 from Liiv SANDBOX.
Yeah, just banking on the hairpins right now. Spear, he is already behind a boost gauge. Liiv, SANDBOX, Neil, and Byungsu, they both have double team boost ready to go.
Ooh.
They're using it, but Spear with a very aggressive turn coming off that last hairpin, and Spear, he's trying to jump right on the inner side, but the boost is just too much for Neil and Byungsu, staying ahead in that gauge, and they will be able to respond right in turn with another 1-2 finish, tying it up 1-1.
Yeah, we've gone through 2 rounds here already, and both matches ended in a 1-2 finish. It was a pretty dominant victory for Guangdong Freaks in round 1, but in round 2, it was even more dominant here for Liiv SANDBOX, so I love to see the momentum being traded between the teams.
Yeah, also, of course, both of them taking each other's pick when it comes to the tracks. I mean, Glacier Extreme Stadium, definitely a track that most of the teams and racers who have been around for a while, they're very comfortable with. However, it's still interesting to see that you kind of open up the speed mode with the tracks that you're each confident in, and then you just trade blows back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to see the momentum swing too heavily in one way in such a nice match like this. Like, how often do we get to see a team match finals? It happens once a season, William.
Yeah, and of course we do have the trophies this time here for preseason 2. We saw Looning picking up the solo match trophy yesterday. Curious to see which team will be able to take home the preseason 2 trophy here for team mode. I mean, this is the last preseason. After this, we get ready for regular season to the rest of the year. So we'll see which team will move ahead as we go to round 3 on Forest Zigzag Timberland. And the race is off, tied 1-1. Neil with some great aggressive starts once again. We talked about it earlier. He made some of that happen during the solo matches to make sure he could go to the final 8. He's trying to make it happen once again here in team mode.
It seems right now that 1-2 is being fought by Hyunsu and Spear here, so they're trying to keep the balance going between the 2 teams. Keep in mind, however, in the middle of the pack, it is Liiv SANDBOX winning right now for the most part.
Yeah, it is interesting to see that Cool continuously being one of the members of KWANGDONG Freaks that is falling behind. Usually it's kind of World and Cool up there. One of them maybe falls behind, but Spear able to recover, things like that. But so far, Cool's always been in the back of the line. We haven't seen him much here in the front of the pack, but right now entering or getting near the hairpins of Zigzag Timberland as Liiv SANDBOX still looking okay with 3 members in the top 4.
And I absolutely love the blocking coming out from Jimin there. It was able to buy a lot of time, and the big collisions from Liiv SANDBOX onto Guangdong Freaks.
Yeah, a double team here from Jimin and Neil. I mean, I gotta wonder if that was entirely intentional, but that absolutely takes away all speed from World. He falls all the way down to 8th place. Now Hyunsu falling behind alongside him, especially as you go through those hairpins. Again, a lot of opportunity to try to catch up, but curious to see what World's recovery looks like, and he's already contesting to get back in the middle of the pack.
Cool off that collision, he's gonna fall behind into 8th place yet again. 7-8 for Guangdong Freaks is a disastrous thing to happen because now Spear and Sungbin, their win condition is to secure 1-2, and look how far away Byungsu is right now.
Yeah, Byungsu definitely trying to get comfy, and right now Jimin's trying to make sure he catches up so that Spear can't pressure Byungsu really. We've noticed that Byungsu, when he's able to race his own race, he seems great, but once that pressure comes in, he starts to make a couple mistakes. And Neil now, alongside Jimin, they have to put the pressure onto Spear and Sungbin so they can't in turn bother Byungsu towards the end of lap 2.
So far, it seems like Byungsu has a lot of time to focus on his own lines. Not only that, he gets some great blocks onto Spear. They're still maintaining that first place. Now, brother Neil comes in to try to secure that 1-2 for Liiv SANDBOX.
Yeah, Neil just going to shoot it. He saw an opening and he just says, I have to take this first place right now. Now it's up to Byungsu to try to retain 3rd place. I mean, you've got Jimin right behind you as well. The 1-3-4 in line right now for Liiv SANDBOX. That gives him a lot of margin. They could even go for a 1-3-5-7. Even the 1-2 finish, maybe even a 1-2-3 as Hyunsu blocks out the entire team of KWANGDONG Freaks trying to come up. He knows he just has to stop them around that last corner, secures the 1-2 finish, and it is going to be Liiv SANDBOX leading 2-1.
I love that block from Hyunsu at the end. They're completely throwing the roster of Guangdong Freaks in annihilation. It was so easy for Neil and Byungsu to focus just on securing that 1-2 near the end. This is what you call a fantastic team play.
Yeah, what a great captain. And what I love about it is the first time he does it, he doesn't go all in. He knows that there's still another turn coming up. If he messes up there, and maybe it's both him and his teammate falling all the way behind in the form of Jimin, then they might actually maybe give an opportunity opportunity to catch up, but he says, no, just slow them down, and then in the last turn, just make everyone crash. If one person gets by, it doesn't matter. We have the 1-2, and one step closer to this trophy here in Preseason 2 for redemption for Liiv SANDBOX.
What stands out to me right now is that coming into today, the team match finals, a lot of the teams and the fans put their vote for Guangdong Freaks, that they're going to be the likely winner. But based on the form that we're seeing from Liiv SANDBOX today here in Speed, it feels like they are a step ahead of Guangdong Freaks in many of these tracks.
And we talked about it, right, for especially these two teams and the rosters they have. I mean, speed mode's where you're really throwing your gauntlet down. If you secure speed mode, you feel a lot better, right? I mean, even Guangdong Freaks, their item mode has been looking better, but again, that can go a little bit either way, track to track. But right now, it's not over just yet. We go to round 4 of speed mode in phase 1, going over to Village Boom Hill Tunnel.
We are here now on match point for Liiv SANDBOX in phase 1 of speed mode, and Cool holds the best record here in Boom Hill Tunnel. So Guangdong Freaks, they're off to a phenomenal start with 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I mean, World completely blocks out a couple of members of Liiv SANDBOX. World definitely avoiding some of that collision as well, just focusing on recovery and saying, okay, we already have such a hefty lead. Now, this is one of those tracks where it starts to get very narrow in the middle and then even towards the shortcut at the end. If you can keep the heavy lead like this, if you have 3 members way up front, it's going to be very difficult for Liiv SANDBOX to try to overtake them.
I love that Byung-Soo was able to weave through the defense of Guangdong Freaks and Cool. Now, he's up here trying to contest with Spear. Spear's getting some crazy hits onto Byung-Soo right now, but Byung-Soo is now faltering and comes in Neil and Cool from the back lines.
Yeah, Byung-Soo's play today is looking a lot more confident than it has during the round robin. A bit of a bump there, but he is able to recover. Now looking at the build, going under the right. Oh, and Byung-Soo, Byung-Soo tries to block out Spear, but alas, it's him who tries to recover on the railing, hits the lights and falls down into the river. And now Spear able to continue the race on his own. World and Spear, they're just focused on once again blocking the majority of racers. It's exactly what Liiv SANDBOX did to them previously. I mean, you can't blame the Liiv SANDBOX racers. They had to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, to try to catch up, but alas, it's not going to be enough. 1, 2, and 3 for Guangdong Freaks, taking us to round 5.
Just as you put it, Will, Liiv SANDBOX, they tried to throw a kitchen sink, and that thing is pretty heavy. If you try to throw a whole entire sink, that might not work out for you sometimes. I love that Liiv SANDBOX were willing to take the aggressive plays despite the risks. However, this time, they took all that risk right into their mouths.
Listen, I will say, I am happy to see Byung-Soo trying moves like that, though, right? It shows that, again, he has an understanding that team mode is not just about racing clean. Like, you can't always guarantee a win by doing that. If you're ahead and your teammates are having trouble catching up, you have to throw the gauntlet down. You have to go for a gambit. And he did, and the idea itself was not bad, as we actually have Seungha in the house as well, both Insu and Seungha. Nice seats up front, but clearly you can see they're a little nervous as well. I mean, these are their ex-teammates that they're cheering for. And, I mean, those two, they were part of the roster that tasted that defeat in Preseason 1. Now trying to cheer on their ex-teammates towards this trophy here in Preseason 2.
And Liiv SANDBOX is definitely going to need all the support they can get, because right now they are up against Guangdong Freaks here in speed of phase 1, and it is tied 2-2, so this upcoming round 5 is going to determine the outcome of speed.
All right, round 5, it is Liiv SANDBOX's choice. Out of the tracks that were left, they select a very difficult one in Factory Facility 5. Now, this is one of those tracks where Neil made one of his famous builds, the Neil builds, jumping on the inner side of that cogwheel. Curious to see if that comes into play when it's do or die time here in phase 1 as we go into Factory Facility 5. Tied 2-2 in speed mode here in the first phase of the grand finals. Liiv SANDBOX and Guangdong Freaks tried to break ahead in the scoreboard by taking a lead.
Yeah, absolutely right now. Guangdong Freaks having a really tight control over the top of the pack. However, Cool, once again, as you mentioned, Will, Cool keeps being in the bottom today, which is very concerning now. It seems like all the players are going to make that jump beautifully Neil and Byung-Soo really trying to deny the 1-2.
Yeah, and Spear, he tried to block off Byung-Soo as well, as we don't see anybody taking the Neil build this time on that jump. But Spear, I mean, he went for that aggressive block earlier, and eventually Byung-Soo, he just calmly takes the outer turn, and he's able to catch up to Neil. Now, Sungbin quite far ahead, but all eyes on Spear right now. Liiv SANDBOX knows how dangerous this racer can be.
And I love the aggression right there from Neil, really trying to stop Spear in his tracks. It didn't work out, but Liiv SANDBOX is still having such a firm control over the 2-3-4 that they just need to let Spear not pass.
Yeah, that you can see that in Neil's movement as well. He's just keeping eyes on Spear. Oh, and they successfully drop him from the shortcut. Neil actually just completely opens up the way. Neil able to catch back up into second place. Now this gave an opening for Cool to catch up, but can he catch up enough to try to get the 1-2? Because that's the only win condition they have.
It seems like Neil is doing all he can to block out Cool right now, and Neil is actually going to go way out of line, opening up Cool to take that second spot. All Cool needs to do is maintain it, but Hyunsoo and Neil is saying no, you can't have it.
Look at Neil's jump, and he blocks off Cool again around the last corner. The 2-3-4 comes in for, oh, actually, it's going to be the 1-3-4 even as Neil just boosts ahead across the finish line in the last second. And with the clutch track pick in round 5, Liiv SANDBOX will take the lead here in phase 1.
This is the speed priority coming into effect here, just as you said, Will. The fact that Liiv SANDBOX got to pick a track that they're so confident in was just shown by their plays here. They were not scared of KWANGDONGFREECS potentially really trying to go for that 1-2 in the end. The maneuvers around Liiv SANDBOX in the final moments there is what earned them this victory.
You know, I hope we can get a replay of that shortcut there, because I think not only did Neil just kind of make way for Spear to drift all the way through, Neil trying to give a shout out to his teammates, and of course also he just trying to give a little bit more screen time to his teammates. But I am curious, because I think there was a stop happening as well right at the end of that jump from one of his teammates. So I think maybe a call came out that they were just going to say, hey, we have 3 people here. Let's just stop right off of the jump, make sure we bump Spear all the way down, and then Neil can catch back up through the shortcut. Now Neil sitting out for item mode, making way for Dalta to come in here in as that item ace.
We've had such an exciting speed mode to start off our day here in the team match finals, and of course item mode, how can you not be excited when you have a player like Dalda who is promising to show us again a all retire?
Yeah, let's see if it can happen. I mean, KWANGDONGFREECS, they chose the track that it happened on earlier for Liiv SANDBOX. They say we're bringing the fight right to you. Maybe even trying to give them a taste of their own medicine on Mine Magma Cavern. But after that, we go to Sphinx's Riddle, Motherlode, Polar Halfpipe, and if we go to a round 5, it's going to be KWANGDONGFREECS' pick of Mushroom Caves.
It would be really nice to see Liiv SANDBOX potentially close it out here in the items, because previously in Preseason 1, Liiv SANDBOX, they lost to KWANGDONGFREECS 0-2, and all Liiv SANDBOX wants to do today is to make sure that that doesn't repeat. So if Liiv SANDBOX is able to secure this phase 1 off of this item mode, they're going to feel really confident going into phase 2 and phase 3 potentially.
Yeah, I mean, you avoid that ace match, you keep the advantage of priority pick, you won speed mode. If you win the item mode again, maybe a couple adjustments in the speed mode draft, but outside of that, you know, it's going to be Liiv SANDBOX with the strong advantage. Some of the fans saying KWANGDONGFREECS, if you lose, you should walk home. Well, hopefully they won't have to as they try to bring things back here in item mode on Mine Magma Cavern.
Off we go into item round 1 between Liiv SANDBOX and KWANGDONGFREECS, and Liiv SANDBOX, they do have quite a big advantage here in the track winning rate, and of course this is where Dalda was able to pull off his all retired in KDL.
Yeah, and of course for that to happen, you're going to need a lot of AoE like we talked about. So a lot of these missiles, water whisties are going to be thrown out just to keep tempo, but it's going to really focus on wombo combos with things like the water bombs, the lightning bolts, really syncing that up with your teammates and the positioning. Now, KWANGDONGFREECS, to try to avoid this, they're constantly trying to get in the lead, but they're not able to escape all the attacks flying in from Liiv SANDBOX.
And not only that, but the itemization on the side of KWANGDONGFREECS is not really helping out right now. They've had 2 EMP waves. They've had to quickly cycle them out because they aren't very useful here in lap number 1. So now KWANGDONGFREECS, they're pretty much itemless here, having only a missile and a water wisp, whereas you look at Jimin, he's holding onto a shield in rank 1, also with the magnet.
Yeah, now we do have a Lightning Bolt and a UFO. The UFO will be used to pull back Jimin just a bit. Now, earlier we saw Byung-Soo even going for a bit of a body block as he waits for a water bomb to dissipate. So, again, clearly a lot more practice and improvement on both sides, but it's still going to be Liiv SANDBOX who's able to keep the lead as we get near the end of lap 2.
I love that Hyun-Soo was really trying to dodge that water bomb there, slow down as much as he can, but it's still going to catch him on the edge of that. So now it's up to Jimin and Byung-Soo to really try to keep up the lead here. Keep in mind, Cool, he's been holding on to this Lightning for quite some time, so we're going to see that being utilized in the final moments.
Yeah, now we do have an Angel Shield here from Byung-Soo along with an individual one as well, so he's kind of free from a lot of the attacks. Now, it's going to be up to him to defend the team against the Lightning Bolts, but there are 2 right now in the hands of KWANGDONGFREECS.
Exactly. Spear picked up a Lightning Bolt just in time, so that's going to apply so much pressure for Liiv SANDBOX now, being only 1 Angel held by the whole entire team here.
Yeah, of course, you do have to time the Lightning Bolts carefully as well to make sure that you get through it. But what an amazing water bomb coming in from Liiv SANDBOX. So Magna pulling Jimin behind. Still both Lightning Bolts, one being used, the Angelic Shield, but the next one comes in, and it absolutely wrecks Liiv SANDBOX as World is able to cross the finish line. 1, 2, 3 finish as well, just for safety. And it will be the KWANGDONGFREECS leading 1-0 in item mode here in the first phase.
The combination of attacks near the end there from KWANGDONGFREECS, the synergy was beautiful. Jimin, he tried to get in the lead as much as possible, but eventually he got pulled back by the magnet and targeted by a multitude of other items as well, and that allowed KWANGDONGFREECS enough space to come back with the 1-2-3 finish.
Yeah, and man, Sungbin with 11 attacks, 100% all going through. Dalda with quite a few to his own name, but not able to get near the top of the finish. Of course, it only matters who crosses the finish line first. In item mode, it's all about first across the line. Magma Cavern, KWANGDONGFREECS' pick. It goes in their favor, leading 1-0 here in item mode.
It's really interesting to see the teamwork between KWANGDONGFREECS. Despite not having a specific item ace, it feels like any of these players are stepping up to the plate, not just in speed or ace mode, it's also in item mode as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, both of these teams, they've been really trying to figure out what the meta is. I mean, every team here in preseason too, especially with a lot of those item changes we discussed early on in the preseason. Curious to see, of course, what that might look like in the future. But for now, I mean, we have escaped the pure Magnet Boost meta. We're now talking about Lightning Bolts maybe being part of that meta, and then sometimes on certain tracks like Magma Cavern, those water bombs doing so much damage. And once again, we saw that Liiv SANDBOX, they wanted to rely on the water bombs. However, the double Lightning Bolt was too much. Can Liiv SANDBOX bring it back and tie things up here in item mode? We find out as we go to Desert Sphinx's Riddle. And the race is off. Of course, Liiv SANDBOX, they do have a bit of breathing room as they won the speed mode, but so far, historically in KDL, the ace matches between these two teams have not looked good for Liiv SANDBOX. They would want nothing more than to get the clean win here in phase 1.
And to do that, they need to start winning here in round number 2 and get 3 wins in the bag against KWANGDONGFREECS. So far here in Sphinx's Riddle, it seems like a lot of shields across the board, and Cool's going to pick up a nifty Lightning Bolt for himself.
And Jimin just slowing down to make sure he can get double items to cycle through those. We'll be keeping he's just going to go through that EMP right away as nothing in danger, threatening some of his teammates. Byung-Soo shooting ahead for the time being with a shield as well. So just trying to keep that tempo advantage here for Liiv SANDBOX.
Speaking of shield, Byung-Soo picks up another one, and double shield is going to be really hard to penetrate through. So Liiv SANDBOX, they have a pretty clear condition of Byung-Soo staying in the lead for now. So this is why UFO is going to be utilized by KWANGDONGFREECS to slow Byung-Soo down.
Yeah, and Byung-Soo, I mean, he also just cycles through both of his shields to see if he can get anything else, maybe something like a boost. But alas, it's just going to prevent him from being able to keep the lead for the time being. He falls all the way behind, picks up a missile for his troubles. Now we do see another Lightning Bolt this time for KWANGDONGFREECS, but another Angel Shield this time for Hyun-Soo, and a Lightning Bolt to respond in turn as well.
It's really stacked right now in the item inventories. We're seeing so many magnets as well, but they're going to get quickly cycled through. So it's interesting to see that Liiv SANDBOX, they made the shot call. Okay, we have too many magnets. One on Dalda and Byung-Soo each is enough. In fact, Byung-Soo gets another magnet.
Yeah, but right now we're seeing so many Angel Shields, I mean, on both sides, double on both sides, so Lightning Bolt's not something that you can rely on, but what I love that Guangdong Freaks did was they used one of the double Lightning Bolts he got earlier to make sure World can stay in the lead. He barely stays alive on the track, but it does give an opportunity for Dalda to get in the lead. He's just trying to block off World. He's just going for the body blocks, waiting for his teammates to catch up. They've got the magnets lined up and ready to go as well.
That is definitely the win condition for Liiv SANDBOX here. You're looking to utilize the magnets. An excellent dodge of the barricades from Sungbin, now trying to lead with Spear out of nowhere in the corner right now. He is uncontested in his build, and first place going to be locked in for Guangdong Freaks, securing their second round win of item.
An incredible play from Guangdong Freaks. Sungbin weaves through the barricades with his own boost and a magnet as well to try to draw the aggro. And once all the focus goes over to him, we just have Spear sticking to the right side wall and just boost forward. Nobody able to stop him. No items left as soon as he gets that second boost going. And he will clear the finish line undeterred, bringing Guangdong Freaks to a 2-0 lead in item mode.
We talked about how nice it would be for Liiv SANDBOX if they're able to close out Phase 1 cleanly with the 2-0 start, but it's looking harder and harder as this item mode goes on. One more round win in the back for Guangdong Freaks, and we are going to an ace match where we talked about previously how Guangdong Freaks, they do seem to be the more strong team when it comes to ace match between the two.
Yeah, I mean, just statistically, right? I mean, nothing against the individual racers of Liiv SANDBOX, but they just have not beaten Guangdong Freaks in an ace match. Now let's take a look at what happened here exactly. Spear, he just has that one extra boost left. He uses it right away once he realizes all the attacks have been thrown at his teammate. Of course, they even had an Angel Shield to make sure that he couldn't be stopped entirely. And it's going to be Guangdong Freaks leading item mode. If it goes to an ace match, will we see maybe even Worlds taking down yet another member of Liiv SANDBOX in a 1v1? We'll have to find out as we get ready for round 3 in item mode of the first phase here in the grand finals in Mine Mother Load.
Guangdong Freaks looking to sweep their opponents here in item round 3. Another win for them means that we are going to an ace match between the teams. And as far as track winning rates go, Guangdong Freaks, they do have a slight advantage.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Guangdong Freaks are also just leading. They're the ones who just have to play comfy. Liiv SANDBOX, the one who has to really throw the gauntlet down here against Guangdong Freaks. Now, Byung-Soo once again in the lead, but, you know, it's just double shield. It's not something that can absolutely make him break apart from the crowd, so eventually the tempo will catch up to him.
Yeah, we can see the missile being utilized there. It's going to force a shield in response from Byung-Soo, and now Sungbin, he's doing all he can to make sure that Byung-Soo is inside. In fact, Byung-Soo, he tried to slow down to dodge the water bomb, but he couldn't do that enough. Now Sungbin is going to take that momentum for himself.
Yeah, Dalta just going to have to fall off track there to regain himself after he gets slowed down on the narrow upwards ramp. Going into lap 2, shields galore in the front of the pack and missiles as well from the back, but that really only causes that spin out now with the balloons in play, so it won't be anything that really flips the entire track.
We talked about Sungbin, how he was able to excellently maneuver around the barricades, but you can't maneuver around that sneaky banana.
Yeah, I mean, he just puts down the banana on one side of it where most likely they will be going after they jump off of that shortcut. And Sungbin just recognizing that a lot of the attacks are coming, so he just eats it all before he's able to start accelerating once again.
It's a water whisk party right now in the front lines as we are here in lap number 2. And as we take a look at the inventories, we see Angels across the board. There's 2 for Guangdong Freaks, 1 for Liiv SANDBOX. No lightning, so it seems like a lot of that offensive capability is going to be down to the good old missiles.
Yeah, and here's the thing, is that this track, definitely one of the ones where the magnet can do a lot of damage. I mean, you got that upwards ramp near the end. Everyone's gonna try to get on the narrow ramp, but if someone magnets you, even if you're in the lead, they'll slow you down, it will mess you up, maybe drop you off of the ramp, and then you can shoot forward, gain that speed boost even in the air, and cross the finish line right at the end.
Sungbin with the excellent utilization of the shield there, he's gonna pick up another one for himself, and you look at the minimap, Sungbin is so far away right now. Dalda, he only has a nitrous to try to catch up. A water whisk fortunately picked up.
Yeah, and he's trying to just slow things down, but the Angel Shield comes out early as well, but maybe that was a mistake. The Lightning Bolt, no, another one coming in from Spear. He's been saving that all the way towards the Aldalda. He just wants something to work with, but it's not enough. The UFO not going to hold Sungbin in place for too long, and we do see a clean sweep in item mode as Kwangdong Freaks takes it 3-0, bringing us to an ace match here in Phase 1 of the Grand Finals.
This is such a great news for Kwangdong Freaks here today in the team match finals, because a lot of the losses for Kwangdong Freaks in the previous moments before we got to the postseason was that the item mode is where they were shaken up at times, leading to the ace matches where they lost so many times in preseason 2. And you have to wonder at this point, Kwangdong Freaks, they're traditionally better at ace, but in terms of stats just in preseason 2, it feels like in this meta, Neil especially has been shining for Liiv SANDBOX.
Yeah, I mean, Neo's been overcoming that 1v1 here in Cartwright or Drift. Obviously, he's a very, very strong player that has a good history behind him in Cartwright, you know, overall. But in KDL, I mean, the 1v1s have played him, right? I mean, he had, of course, you know, the ace matches that plagued him in preseason 1. He got all the way to the final 2 against Cool himself in the solo match the preseason 1. Wasn't able to be victorious there either. So curious to see, do you bring Neil out once again on the side of Liiv SANDBOX, or will it be maybe Byung-Soo, right? You brought him in as one of these speed mode racers, the runners that you want on your team. Curious to see. Jimin obviously had great performances once again in the solos this preseason. Same with Hyunsoo. I mean, both teams, it would never surprise us if any of these 8 racers came out for speed mode when it comes to the ace match. But the time is ticking down. Looks like Kwangdong Freaks have made their choice.
Just as you said, Will, all 8 of these players are capable of representing their teams here in the ace match. But honestly, when we talk about just careers that these players have developed in the ace match thus far, it feels like Neil and World are the standouts here. So it would be exciting to get that rematch happen in the ace match for the first time in preseason 2.
All right, just a bit of a fake out coming out from Kwangdong Freaks. Everyone putting their earbuds and headsets on once again, so we won't know until we get into the lobby. A bit of a hand signal coming out from Byung-Soo. Curious to see one of the fan signs we saw earlier saying that, you know, I would love to see Byung-Soo win his first title. Obviously, Byung-Soo was brought on to the KDL scene by Sensation in preseason 1, and then Liiv SANDBOX after they had to make a couple roster additions, losing 2 members like Insu and Seungha to mandatory military service. They decided, they scouted him out, said, we loved what you showed, we love the potential you showed, both in solos and team mode in preseason 1. Join us on the Invincible Armada of Liiv SANDBOX. First up, the track, it will be Mind-Winding Slopes. It couldn't get any better. A track that these 2 teams have faced off against each other so many times in both team and solo mode. But when it came to solos in the ace matches, it was always World who was able to lead ahead.
And this is the track that gave Neil so much problems in preseason 1. But in preseason 2, Neil has shown that he's gotten much better. And now, if he can prove that against a like of Kwangdong Freaks, I was gonna say, but no, it's not Neil this time. It's Hyunsoo coming out from Liiv SANDBOX.
The captain says, I will lead us to victory. I mean, it's captain versus captain. Hyunsoo versus World. Liiv SANDBOX versus the Kwangdong Freaks World. He's been very dominant when it was left to his own devices in a 1v1 ace match here on Mind-Winding Slopes. However, this is a track in general that Kwangdong Freaks have avoided in the team matches. Hyunsoo, it comes down to him. Can they overcome that drama against the Kwangdong Freaks when it comes to ace matches? Ladies and gentlemen, we will be wrapping up the first phase of the Grand Finals here on Mind-Winding Slopes. And the race is off, and oh, you could see it right in the movement. World was so aware that Hyunsoo might go for an aggressive start like Neil did in the solos, and off of that, on an off tempo, Hyunsoo blocks him out once again, able to get the lead as we go into the caves.
And as we take a look at the boost gauge, it is evenly matched right now, Hyunsoo having a slight lead if anything, and if Hyunsoo can just keep up these blocks against World, it is going to be a phenomenal start for him.
Oh, but World just blocks him up right before the important jump here, and neither of them, oh, Hyunsoo slows down a bit too much, and that's what World is hoping for. Hyunsoo, both of them were positioning for that same move when it came to that jump, and World is able to get just ahead, but both of them losing a lot of speed as they're so aware of the potential collisions coming in from either opponent.
And this is one of the dangerous parts about winding slopes. We've seen an instance where Hojun was able to execute his opponent here. In fact, World's going to take a collision there, but a nice recovery is going to allow him to stay in the lead.
Yeah, and both of them able to enter these shortcuts. Hyunsoo just having to cut just a bit more aggressively, but now all caught up. There's still a couple of hairpins coming in towards the end of the track. Hyunsoo right behind World. He is absolutely in draft range, and World just completely stops, loses all speed, but makes sure Hyunsoo does the same. World wants to make sure that no spin turn happens from Hyunsoo. Blocks the entire draft away from Hyunsoo. World, what a world-class performance. The timing to block out the draft. Just absolutely impressive. I mean, I think at this point, you have to admit that World is by far the strongest ace racer we've seen in the KDL. The fact that he listens and watches for the draft, he sees it happening, and that's when he goes for the stop and the block. And that's when the extra acceleration was coming in for Hyunsoo, and he says, nope, that's it, your chance is gone. You won't get another draft chance because the cooldown is now off. I will shoot ahead. We're constantly turning around those corners, and World secures phase 1 of the grand finals for KWANGDONGFREECS.
That was such a nice thing to watch coming out from World there. He felt like he was reading into the mind of Hyunsoo at all times, and that allowed World to be a step ahead in each of the moves, coming in with the aggressive turns while simultaneously blocking. It has been a key factor in the success of World here as an ace match player. He took the first defeat ever for his ace match career in KDL this season, but he's able to turn it around here against Hyunsoo from Liiv SANDBOX in the team match finals.
Yeah, I mean, what an impressive showing here from World and the KWANGDONGFREECS. I mean, a 3-2 tough loss in the speed mode, but they bounce right back, don't drop another track all the way into the ace match, and they're able to take phase 1. Now, of course, we are far from over for all of our Kart Rider Drift fans. There are potentially 3 phases in the grand finals. The first phase and second phase will look the same. It will be just a team match of speed, item, and ace mode. But after that, if they trade blows, we will go to that 1v1 King of the Hill phase 3.
What an exciting way to start off our phase 1 here, Will. It felt like when we were playing in speed mode, Liiv SANDBOX were just having a really good day for themselves, but starting in item, they really started to falter, and here in the ace match, I don't feel like it was a mistake from Hyunsoo that really cost Liiv SANDBOX the match. It's just the form coming out of World, the world-class player in these ace matches really showing why, all that experience he's had, and he was able to build so many wins off of them.
Yeah, I mean, of course, absolutely. I mean, this was all World being ahead. But ladies and gentlemen, the teams will have a chance to discuss as they prep for phase 2. We'll be right back after this break as we continue the grand finals.
일단 손목 걸게. 점수 손목 걸게. 순간 삭발 걸게.
이 자리에 있으니까 감동 아주 이상하다 느낌. 감독 된 것 같아 저 형. 좀 든든해? 응. 감독 겸 선수. 응. 멋있다.
오늘부터 아시다시피 뱀픽이 라이브입니다.
사빙이야 스코링. 사빙 아니면 아이경 스코링. 아이경 할 것 같아.
사빙이야.
아이경이야.
사빙이야.
오히려 강섭지. 오.
나라니까 애초에 차부터가 다르잖아.
그러니까 눈썰미가 없어서 어떻게 게임을 하려고. 진짜 어이가 없네. 강삼집이란다.
아니야. 대질주 벤이야.
아 봐봐. 눈썰미가 없어서 선수를 하겠나.
말을 못하고.
지금 오히려 조커가 앞순위에 있는 거는 나쁘지 않다고 보거든요. 이렇게 뒤에서만 흔들어주면.
꼬이게 해놨다. 봐봐.
그게 나야?
말 꼬이게 해놨어. 봐봐.
나이스. 팔은 죽었어. 씻고야겠다.
두 번째 점프대에서 이를 잡고 틀어막는다거든요 이거.
잘 따라가긴 해요, 진짜.
떨어졌어?
걔 좋았어. 뒤에 몇 등?
어떻게 하죠?
나이스. 나도 스위터?
오동 나이스. 그냥 확실히 그냥 주행하다 보면은 얘네랑 체급 차이가 너무 많이 나가지고.
맞아. 진짜
그냥 솔직히 1점 따기도 지금 힘들어. 체급 차이 너무 많이 나서. 아이템전을 우리가 역으로 찍어 누르자.
공이 좋았어.
이거 미사일.
남아왔어.
미사일 모을 수 있으면 모으자. 이거 잠깐만.
1미.
나 모으자고 좀.
들리면 해도 돼? 스파야? 하자. 모르겠어.
빨렸어.
앞에 거리 안 나와. 오케이.
계속 밟만해.
보잖아.
하나씩 줘봐.
보잖아 더. 계속 맞아. 앞에 있어. 앞에
얘
있어.
밟았다 이거.
앞에 있어 얘들아. 봐봐.
천천히. 오케이 이제 먼저 물 조심. 내가 땡길게. 내가 땡겨. 1등 하나야. 1등 하나. 형 이겨. 밀어줄게. 나이스. 형 나 콜 진짜.
이거 그 전에 빠져 땄어야 된다. 파리 번개.
타이밍 자체를 조절할 타이밍이 왔거든요. 드래프트 타이밍을.
더 하려고 하겠죠.
또 있어요, 뒤에.
또 완전 뚫었고요. 뒤.
뒤에 발리가 나오거든요.
자 그런데 뭐 뒤에 걸려야 돼요.
거리가.
자 상대 이제 광고 간다. 자 봐라 광고.
광삼지예요 광삼지.
광고야. 광고 봐라.
권섭지.
광고라고.
권섭지.
광고라고.
절대 안 해.
사빙 픽하겠습니다.
사비.
맛있다. 오히려 공장할 수도 있어요 내가.
유혹한다니까 유혹.
뉴욕한다니까.
브라질이야.
아 이러면 뉴욕이야. 브라질 아니야 뉴욕이야. 봐라.
폰밀.
브라질이야.
뉴욕에 달다 손목 걸게.
나 브라질이다 병수 손목 걸게.
나는 승아 삭발 걸게.
맞다니까. 아니 진짜 뻔하다고 진짜 뻔하다고.
야 누가 내 손목 걸지 않았냐? 선수가 내 손목 걸었는데.
떨리는 사람. 긴장되는 사람.
나 딱히 긴장.
형이 제일 긴장될 때.
내가 제일 긴장돼.
펠리즈 긴장했죠.
펠리즈.
아이 펠리즈 긴장했죠.
긴장 풀고 해요.
오케이.
얘들아 4선이니까 게임 기니까 여유롭게 해. 그냥 저도 뭐 한두 판 진다고 뭐 큰일 나는 거 아니니까 4선이니까. 사람 같이 갈게. 우리 갈게.
나이스.
200참.
나가자.
할때 말았어.
나 아웃할게.
말았어. 뚫었어.
나이스.
10개 탈게.
이 3위를 어쨌든 먹었습니다.
가요? 오케이.
한번 긁었다.
괜찮아.
일단 200만 해봐.
일어났어.
자 끝까지.
조금 빌드가 꼬였지만 뒤쪽에서 역전이 나오는지 봐야 됩니다.
밀렸다.
까비.
일세.
이거. 봤어?
아니 나 일부러
차례.
꺼가지고 죽여버렸어.
연습 들었다. 1등 내가 미리 걸어줄게. 잠깐만. 걸었어.
사이드. 됐다.
이득이야.
맞아. 내가 챙겨왔. 물도 하나 챙겼어.
오케이.
나물 버릴게. 나도 물 버릴게.
나 미끼야. 나도 미사일.
사리와. 미끼네.
하나 해봐.
나 맞지 하나 했지만 나 맞지 않았어.
다 맞아.
벗게.
정작 그냥 가.
할게.
포기했어.
맞아?
1파 줬어. 맞아. 그냥 가. 그냥 가.
이미 맞아.
그냥 가.
진짜 빨리
없다. 미안한데.
게 없다고 미안합니다. 이게 아무것도 없다고. 거기 다 나왔다고.
현수가 올 거예요. 관계대 맞아가면서 현수가 들어갑니다. 자, 오늘 이제 준비된 경기는 팀전 플레이오프가 기다리고 있어.
명재 컨디션 좋아 오늘?
난 항상 좋아.
이요.
팀의 모습을 보여줘야겠고요.
돌려.
돌리자.
진건이 어딨어? 아 이거 아니잖아. 사악한데?
얘들아, 뒤에 없고 오늘 과감하게 하고 오자.
네.
마음보다 뛰고.
네.
파이팅.
파이팅.
선두권의 속도를 약간 줄여주는 몸싸움을 띵이 해줘야 될 것 같습니다.
막았다. 형 가봐. 살려봐봐. 막았어.
해라 해줄게. 가봐.
해야겠다. 일단 7, 8 찍어놨어. 준현이 형 나 그랬거리. 청해놔. 오케이. 7, 8 고정. 고정이래. 이름만 해.
성민이 1위 그대로 들어옵니다. 2, 3위로는 부족합니다. 락스.
나이스 1등. 나이스. 잘했다. 7, 8 잘했다.
내가 오늘 컨디션이 괜찮아. 잘렸다. 미안. 괜찮아.
아이템 믿겨줘. 알았어. 한명 달려 우리. 생미 하나 줬어.
발 살아있다.
괜찮아. 빼줬잖아. 나좀 아파. 뺄게. 오케이 다이 풀어야 돼.
다이 할게 지금.
해봐.
셋. 맞으면 빼고 다 맞아. 나 좀 많이 걸려. 1비 하나 할게.
내봐 같이 하자.
딴 거다.
1점이 맞아. 1미 하나 더 할게.
짜라 맞자.
1미 맞았어. 1미 안 맞아.
발이 깔려있고.
알았어.
맞아 뒤에.
페이지 들어갔다.
한 개 맞춰줄게.
천천.
이제 갖고 있어.
일단 내가 걸게.
나 미사일 그냥 가봐. 나갔어. 페이지 걸린 거.
일매하자 월드가 들어갑니다.
나이스. 오케이. 나이스. 다행이다. 아 내가 팔이
까비.
팔이 안 팔이 안.
Welcome back, everyone. We continue the grand finals of Preseason 2 here at Kart Rider Drift League. Currently, we actually have Kwangdong Freaks leading 1-0. They took the first phase with an ace match win as we saw World take down Hyunsu.
So far, it is going pretty similar to that rematch happening in Preseason 1 where Kwangdong Freeks and Liiv SANDBOX, they fought in the team match finals. And here in the rematch today, once again, Kwangdong Freeks winning that Phase 1 off of that ace match. So in Phase 2, I feel like a lot more extra weight has been added onto the shoulders of Liiv SANDBOX.
Yeah, and especially because they give away that advantage now, Kwangdong Freaks will have choice of priority, and surely they will choose speed mode priority as they dominated item mode, feeling much more confident in that front. Now let's take a look. Yes, indeed, Kwangdong Freaks says we will happily choose our first round, and I gotta imagine you gotta bring out Construction Chaos. I mean, this is a track that you're so good at, and Liiv SANDBOX has struggled with, and that will indeed be the first round. 100% win rate here for the Kwangdong Freaks.
That is definitely going to be one of the biggest pickups that Kwangdong Freaks could have chosen for themselves, and a quick ban onto WKC Japan circuit saying, nope, you're not going to get that this time, Liiv SANDBOX.
The crazy part is they even won that one, albeit it was very close, and Kwangdong Freaks had to throw a Hail Mary to win it, but they say, we don't want to risk it. I mean, we accept that that was also maybe a little bit of lady luck on our side. We're not going to give you your comfort pick. We'll take that out of the run. So Kwangdong Freaks, it definitely looks like they're coming into Phase 2 and saying, we're not risking anything. We want an absolute guaranteed win here.
That is what Kwangdong Freaks really needs, because speed is the place where they should be concerned the most based on the form that Liiv SANDBOX showed there. And it's going to be a ban onto Village Boom Hill Tunnel.
Yeah, that's one that did plague Liiv SANDBOX the previous phase. Now, of course, it was Kwangdong Freaks' pick at the time, but that was the one where Byung-soo was able to stay in the lead, but it was only himself. He goes for a Hail Mary block on the railing off that Neil build, but it's himself who eventually drops into the river. Now, this does open up World Tour New York Rally, and Liiv SANDBOX will happily pick that up for round 2.
That is a very nice pickup for Liiv SANDBOX. Probably the best one they could have chosen at this point, and a quick
Other competitions kind of leave that to the end and just say, okay, if it gets there, you know, whoever is in better condition wins. But both teams, you know, happily picking that up. I mean, especially KWANGDONGFREECS, they're happily picking it up every chance they get. Now in phase 1, Liiv SANDBOX did dominate Glacier Extreme Stadium with a 1-2 finish.
And we're going to see the quick bans come out. Mine 3 shortcuts from KWANGDONGFREECS, as well as World Tour Terracotta Twister from Liiv SANDBOX, which surprises me because I didn't really expect this track to be banned out today.
Yeah, they continue banning it out, though, here in the second phase of bans, both in phase 1 and phase 2 of the Grand Finals. We return once again to Zigzag Timberland. If we go to round 4, you know, curious to see round 5. I can't imagine that KWANGDONGFREECS will pick Factory Facility 5. I think they'll be taking us to a different track, so maybe a bit of a change here in the overall track list, as we currently have Glacier Extreme Stadium and Zigzag Timberland repeated. And wow, KWANGDONGFREECS taking us to Mine Winding Slopes in team mode. Now I've seen everything.
I love how surprised you are by this one here, Will. And it's definitely one to throw us off, and I feel like round 5 is the perfect place to throw in these really crazy tracks that no one expected to see coming.
Yeah, I mean, again, you just won the ace match there, World. He's constantly looked good at it. I mean, Spear has a crazy highlight on that track as well. But also, this is one where overall, as a team in team mode, they've never looked that clean. So it is surprising to me that they are taking us there to the very end. But we saw there in the win rate, it's not like Liiv SANDBOX has been really a shining example for that track either. And so we have quite a different lineup. We'll be kicking things off with Construction Chaos, the ending things in Winding Slopes if it gets there. We'll have a chance to review that after we go through the item mode draft.
It feels like these speed mode drafts have been going super duper fast, and I assume it's going to be the same for item mode as well. And I feel like Liiv SANDBOX, they have to switch up their strategy now because they are the ones to first pick here now, and it's going to be Village Clock Tower Crossing.
Yeah, that one was banned out by KWANGDONGFREECS earlier. So Liiv SANDBOX choosing to take us there. Again, one of those tracks that neither team has seen victory on just yet here in Preseason 2. Cogwheel Crush will be banned out once again.
Yeah, I love that Cogwheel Crush ban from Liiv SANDBOX because it's a track that they've played a lot but haven't found too much success on. Desert Pharaoh's Pass, the ban from KWANGDONGFREECS, as well as a Mine Magma Cavern pickup.
Yeah, the Magma Cavern returning here for KWANGDONGFREECS. We saw some success on there previously, and they'll try to continue that again by picking up against Liiv SANDBOX.
We kept highlighting Liiv SANDBOX having such a good performance in Magma Cavern, but it's so interesting that KWANGDONGFREECS keeps not shying away from it, and as a response to that, Liiv SANDBOX, they bring in World Tour London Night, and this is a track that I feel like both teams are pretty decent at.
Yeah, now this is a track that in the very first preseason of the year, Preseason 1, Liiv SANDBOX absolutely dominated on this track in item mode, and then they started to falter a little bit once the item meta started to change. They were trying to juggle different ideas. Not as clean as Preseason 1, but still a confident track for both teams.
Absolutely, and now we are going into the second ban coming out of Liiv SANDBOX, and you can see they don't really take much time at all there. Village Town Hall going to be immediately taken out.
All right, so a bit of a change up here in terms of the bans, but KWANGDONGFREECS says we will be banning out that Polar Half Pipe. It was picked up by Liiv SANDBOX in phase 1. We didn't get there as KWANGDONGFREECS had a clean 3-0, but KWANGDONGFREECS not taking any chances.
And of course, we see the My Mother Load being picked up by KWANGDONGFREECS here yet again. And I feel like My Mother Load is a track that, once again, both teams are pretty successful at. But if anything, KWANGDONGFREECS, they were super dominant in it this season around.
Yeah, and in that phase 1, I mean, I'll be honest, it didn't look clean for Liiv SANDBOX. I mean, Liiv SANDBOX definitely didn't get any of the kind of clutch items that you'd usually look for in track 3, but they also weren't set up with a backup plan as they got into that last lap. So curious to see if they'll be able to have an adjustment as KWANGDONGFREECS puts that into round 4 once again. And then in the very last round, if it gets there, we will have another new look. This time it's going to be Factory Brody's Glue.
I love when I see a factory track for round 5 because it feels like it's the final Hail Mary where everything's going to go down. You know, item mode by itself, it's already crazy with all the offensive items coming back into the meta. But when the track itself is trying to slow you down, that's really going to throw players in for a twist.
All right, so the draft is done for Phase 2. If Guangdong Freaks is able to take victory in Phase 2, they will be crowned the winners once again. They will win back-to-back preseason titles and be the preseason kings as the KDL revs up for the regular season in the rest of the year. We take a look at the speed track draft before we jump right into it. Round 1, it's going to be Guangdong Freaks' bread and butter, Desert Construction Chaos. Then World Tour New York Rally, 2 very different starts than Phase 1, but then we see a bit of a repeat on Extreme Stadium, Zigzag Timberland before we potentially go all the way to Mine Winding Slopes.
I love the fact that there's such a switch in pace, given that this time around in Phase 2, Guangdong Freaks, they had speed priority. So you have to wonder if Guangdong Freaks this time, they're going to be able to win in speed. They absolutely need that momentum to start right here in Round 1 of Speed Phase 2. And we are going to be taken to Desert Construction Chaos.
And the race is off. You can see at the top of your screens, right under the scoreboard, we do have Guangdong Freaks' logo for Phase 1. They take that victory. We are currently in speed mode of Phase 2.
And it seems like so far, World and Sungbin, they're looking to control that 1-2 right off the bat. However, keep in mind that Liiv SANDBOX, they are winning that midfield. Spear, he's stuck in 8th place, which is disastrous for Guangdong Freaks.
Yeah, now one way that Guangdong Freaks always secures victory on this track is that they keep this lead, then once you go into the construction area, as you get towards that 90-degree turn, you basically just play safe. You slow down, make sure everyone collides into you, keep that lead before going in to that final jump. But right now, Hyunsu already putting pressure on that plan and saying you guys aren't getting comfy as we get near the end of track 1.
And especially in a track like Desert Construction Chaos, it's really hard to pass the other players because especially on a corner like this, you have to slow down in order to not collide, and we can see that 2nd place really being held nicely by Hyunsu.
Yeah, Hyunsu tried to put a little bit of fake pressure there, trying to say that he was going to cut the inner line on the 90-degree turns, just forcing everyone to slow down, and then everyone avoiding that collision. Now that bought time for Neil to catch up as Hyunsu takes a draft and is able to take that first spot for the time being.
Liiv SANDBOX and Guangdong Freaks, they're so close right now in the standings, but Guangdong Freaks, they have the 7-8 placement, so they need this 1-2 to keep up from Sungbin and World, and Neil is doing all he can to collide into World.
Yeah, meanwhile, in that picture-in-picture, it's all up to Jimin to try to make sure he can continue to put pressure and pull in Spear so that the only win condition Guangdong Freaks will have is the 1-2 punch.
And so far, that punch is coming on too strong. Hyunsu, however, with an aggressive inner there, he's able to cut in front of World, and now he's between the 2 players. World is doing all he can, and that's going to cost him his line.
Yeah, but Cool has caught up as well, so it's still anybody's game right now. 1, 2, 3, all spread across both teams. Hyunsu continue to put pressure on Sungbin, but I think Liiv SANDBOX, they've accepted first seed. It's going over to Guangdong Freaks as Liiv SANDBOX, they absolutely try to secure the 2, 3, 4, and even Hyunsu putting pressure by taking first, not letting go of the point lead right now. Sungbin will do whatever he can, but there is no option for him to bring home victory other than stopping and blocking every single racer, and it's going to be a 1, 2, 3 finish for Liiv SANDBOX in dramatic fashion as they wrap up the first track of speed mode.
It feels like Guangdong Freaks, they were struggling from start to finish here in the Desert Construction Chaos. Yeah, it looks good when you can hold that 1-2. However, the 7-8 placement from Guangdong Freaks, it placed too much pressure on the runners. They didn't have the backup, whereas Liiv SANDBOX, they were able to catch up eventually and secure that 1-2-3-5.
Yeah, it's crazy because Liiv SANDBOX, while they've consistently banned this track, the 2 times they had to play it before coming into the grand finals, they actually sniped it away from the other team. So it's not exactly an entirely weak track, it's just one they didn't prefer. And now Guangdong Freaks, they came in confidently, and they once again fall to that snipe coming in from Liiv SANDBOX. Liiv SANDBOX lead 1-0 here in speed mode of Phase 2.
That's actually been the trend of Phase 1 speed mode as well, where when we were beginning, all the tracks picked by the teams, they were losing in them and letting their opponents take the momentum there. So now the next track being Liiv SANDBOX's choice, if Guangdong Freaks wins here, it's gonna be like there's some curse going on today.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when you get into these kind of long-form battles in the grand finals of any competition, you generally practice for what you think your opponents are strong at because you're comfortable with what you're good at. And then you start to trade blows. So curious to see if that'll happen here on World Tour New York Rally, another track that was banned in Phase 1. It is opened up this time in Phase 2 for Liiv SANDBOX as we go into track number 2.
speed round 2 starts here right now, and it's Guangdong Freaks Cool having the best record here so far out of any of our players. But you take a look at the roster of Liiv SANDBOX, outside of Jimin, they have a phenomenal lead.
Yeah, and oh wow, a 1-2-3 lead right now for Liiv SANDBOX. I mean, if Jimin can simply get away from 8th place or even just pressure Cool and World to a certain extent, this is already looking pretty solid for Liiv SANDBOX. Now, there's a couple areas once you get to the bull here coming up around the turn, and then as you exit the terminal into the park, those are 2 big areas where you look for a bit of a comeback, and Byung-Soo with a great block is able to recover around that turn.
Absolutely, and right now, if you look at the 1-2, Sungbin has been constantly hot on the heels of Hyunsoo and Neil, but not able to come across them because Neil, with such a nice lead for himself, it's opening up Byung-Soo to also now catch up to the front of the pack and try to sweep Sungbin out of the way.
Yeah, and you can just see that Kwangdong Freaks feels the pressure, right? Cool even going for a bit of a switch on that build there just to take that extra boost while he keeps building that gauge, avoid some of that collision to try to catch up, but it puts him nowhere close to the front of the pack. And I've never seen Byung-Soo play so aggressively, but he's doing a great job of tying up Sungbin for the time being. Spear now trying to help break his teammate away from Byung-Soo.
The adaptation of the sweeper rolls right now coming from Liiv SANDBOX is proving to be too much for Guangdong Freaks to handle. It's all up to Sungbin and Cool to try to break apart this 1-2, but that collision seems to set things in stone, and Liiv SANDBOX, they're gonna punch in their 1-2 punch victory.
Yeah, and the team boost way ahead for Liiv SANDBOX as well. Hyunsoo crossing the finish line with another team boost left over. Never needed it as he takes the draft, comes in 1, Neil comes in 2 right alongside him. And it's going to be a clean 2-0 lead here in speed mode of Phase 2 in the Grand Finals.
It seems like the curse has been broken, Will. Liiv SANDBOX, they won in their own track that they chose, so it feels like a lot of the momentum is swinging for Liiv SANDBOX now, being up 2-0. In fact, Hyunsoo is going to beat Cool in his record and set one for Liiv SANDBOX.
Yeah, nice new record here from Hyunsoo. I mean, this was just an easy race for Hyunsoo and Neil. They were never really pressured thanks to Byung-Soo sitting in 3rd place, sweeping away anyone who's trying to approach. And eventually we saw a couple attempts coming in from Guangdong Freaks, but it was a little too late as they couldn't get into draft range, had to go for an aggressive build towards the very end and rammed themselves right into the wall. So now, 1 track away from securing that speed mode once again for Liiv SANDBOX, and now trying to even maybe secure the item mode coming up afterwards.
Liiv SANDBOX, if they can continue on this momentum and win their next round, just as you put it, Will, we will be moving on to item mode with a speed victory once again for Liiv SANDBOX. And that's absolutely what they need right here, right now. Insu and Seungha is cheering from the crowd today to support their brothers. The new Soo duos in Hyunsoo and Byung-Soo has been pretty much filling that missing Insu so well here so far in KDL Preseason 2. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for round 3. It is going to begin in Glacier Extreme Stadium.
And the race is off. Again, this is a track that both teams are so accustomed to. Here's to see Kwangdong Freeze. Can they start the comeback here in round 3 of Phase 2?
The new Soo duos leading the pack right now for Liiv SANDBOX, holding on to that 1-2 pretty fiercely. Spear and Sungbin, they're forced to play catch-up, but keep in mind that World, he is down right now in 8th place, which is uncharacteristic of him.
Yeah, but Spear and Sungbin, I mean, they're in very good position to eventually disrupt Hyunsoo and Byung-Soo. Spear already putting on the pressure, and Byung-Soo, once again, good recovery. He's improved so much when it comes to the team mode contention. I'm very impressed. Eventually, let's weigh. However, still really sticking around to provide support for Hyunsoo.
I love that Byung-Soo is going for all these blocks and dodges. He is weaving through them beautifully. In fact, he's going to crash Spear into the wall and try to buy more time and space for Hyunsoo here. Look at Byung-Soo, so aggressive right now.
Yeah, just completely messes up the acceleration coming out from Sungbin as well. And he's able to maintain his own with the boost. Now everyone trying to cut to try to catch up. But the big news is no one, not a single racer on the track currently next to Hyunsoo to try to overtake him.
Jimin, he's playing that sweeper role on 2 players from Guangdong Freaks right now, all by himself. And it seems like Spear is going to penetrate that defense, but Hyunsoo is so far away.
Yeah, and because Spear was so focused on blocking off Byungsu, he does get a nice stop against him right in front. But Jimin pressures him again, where Spear has to regain control. Gives an opening for Byungsu. Once again, the 1-2, the Mewsu duo coming out from Liiv SANDBOX. We approach the hairpins towards the end of lap 2. Jimin once again pressuring Spear. Spear just wants to break apart. The 1-2, try to get an advantage, try to make an opening happen. He's right up there, but Byungsu, he's constantly slowing down Spear, even trying to make him fall off the jump.
Spear has done such a phenomenal job of sweeping up in here, but he's by himself, and that is the main point here. Liiv SANDBOX, they have an easy recovery here for that 1-2-3 finish. The 6-7-8 placement for Cool, Sungbin, and World was just too tough for Spear to try to carry.
Wow, the 1-2-3 finish to get the 1-2-3 rounds in speed mode here of the second phase of the grand final. Liiv SANDBOX, they continue to win speed mode here in the team match finals, but can they do the same in item mode?
You have to assume they can, because it feels like once the track priorities have changed, the momentum has completely shifted as well. In phase 1, Liiv SANDBOX, they went down all the way to the 5th round here in speed, but now they're able to close it off in such a clean fashion. If they can keep this up, that is the momentum they need to win phase 2 and take us to a phase 3.
Yeah, I absolutely want to give a shout out to Byungsu, right? I mean, everyone has grown so much. I mean, all racers on the stage right now throughout preseason 2, but Byungsu was that racer where a lot of people agreed they saw the potential in preseason 1, and then coming into preseason 2 on Liiv SANDBOX, it was very clear that he was just so focused on his own builds that once he was messed up, he wouldn't be able to recover. He couldn't get through these physical fights, the kind of scuffles and the body checking, things like that. And now he's the one who's able to put pressure and take these aggressive moves. Even if it sometimes costs him the race, he doesn't give up, brings it right back in the second phase.
Honestly, Will, I think for Byungsu, it's the hair difference. You can see he went golden mode.
Yeah,
like,
all right.
Like from Dragon Ball Z, you know, when your hair turns golden, that means you powered up.
Yeah, I mean, the yellow racer is the first seed when it comes to solo matches. There's a trend.
Ah, you see where I'm going.
Liiv SANDBOX is gold and black, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
There's something going on here. Maybe GWANGDONGFREECS players need to dye their hair all red and turn into tomatoes on the stage, because they need something to bring things back. As we take a look at the item mode draft, Liiv SANDBOX had item mode priority, or they were rather given item mode priority, and they will bring us to Village Clock Tower Crossing to start.
Absolutely, and right now we can see that it seems GWANGDONGFREECS, they're so confident in the mine-themed tracks despite Liiv SANDBOX having shown such a phenomenal performance in there as well. So GWANGDONGFREECS having won that phase 1 in a dominating 3-0 fashion, I'm sure they're now coming into this phase 2 of item mode feeling like this is home ground for them where they can start to win again.
Yeah, we got a full house in the stadium today to watch this rematch here in the grand finals of preseason 2. Will Liiv SANDBOX take us to phase 3? We find out as things kick off on Clock Tower Crossing.
We have the pleasure of visiting Village Clock Tower Crossing after it's been banned out in phase 1. And this is a very crazy track. So many players have spent numerous hours researching into tactics, how to succeed here, and one of the popular strategies have been to build yourself that significant lead and go for that all-retire play that Dalta has previously shown us.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that can happen. I mean, this is another one of those tracks, even here in item mode, that if you're able to keep that lead, you should have a massive advantage of crossing that finish line towards the end, as you will want to go through this shortcut. We see it on the screen coming up. You have to go through these boxes, and as soon as you come out, it's just the finish line there. It's so hard to try to overtake someone there in the last turn.
And right now, here in lap number 2, we can see Spear, he's holding on to an Angel, so that's going to most likely stick with us all the way to lap number 3, whereas the shield actually coming out from World was a bit too late, so he's going to get caught out by that.
Yeah, UFOs on both sides. Liiv SANDBOX just going to use theirs to try to bring the tempo back. Even a missile slowing down World. So GWANGDONGFREECS not able to entirely escape the grasp of Liiv SANDBOX just yet. Neither team having 2 FT of a lead, although as I see that World starts to get ahead just a bit. Nothing slowing him down anymore. They're not even able to really target him from their screens right now. Finally, a missile goes through and brings the speed right back down for World.
Keep in mind that Dalda all the way in the back, he has a lightning as well as a magnet. We saw Byung-soo get really slowed down there, but it doesn't matter because now he can play the supportive role for his team and try to pick up some items that can help his team out. As we see World, he is really far right now.
Liiv Sandbox has to use a lightning bolt right now just to draw out that shield, get something else going, because there's no other way to catch up to him. They can't even target him on their screens right now. The UFO will do enough. Then they send the lightning bolt. It is slowing him down. The shield actually late from World because of the UFO, so he is slowed down quite a bit. The Angel Shield will keep him in the lead, but right now, what else do you have? You have nothing. You have to recycle all of your items on the side of Liiv Sandbox. The water bombs, can it be enough to slow him down in the shortcut?
The shield from World was too good.
Doesn't
He's keeping
hit.
up the momentum. None of them is hitting.
But the Water Wisp!
World, he's going to get caught out by the Water Wisp here, but World still finalizes a victory for Guangdong Freaks.
And that's exactly what happens. It's so hard to overtake right out of the shortcut. That turn is so sharp, and it's so narrow coming out of the shortcut that unless maybe you have a UFO where they're not able to really turn their cart as they come out of it, something like that, it's very difficult to overtake. And despite their dramatic attempt from Liiv Sandbox, so clutch Water Wisp, things like that coming out, the boost to go in through the clock tower, it still was not enough once the second lightning bolt was blocked out by that Angel Shield.
I love that Guangdong Freaks, they were able to win here despite it being the choice from their opponent, and the playstyle out of World was ideal here. He was able to absorb all the aggro from the teammates' Angels, his own shields, and in the end he was slowed down by numerous items like the UFO, but he's still able to maintain that lead.
Yeah, I mean, the timing from the UFO into the first lightning bolt was even good. It made him waste his shield, but there was a clutch Angel Shield coming out from the side of KWANGDONG Freaks, someone saving their teammate World so that he wasn't entirely caught up on. And now Liiv Sandbox, they have to try for the item mode comeback as we go to round 2 on Mind Magma Cavern. This was the first track of item mode in Phase 1. KWANGDONG Freaks takes that victory. They're looking to do the same here in Phase 2.
And this is going to be a long track. We are very familiar with the layout of Mind Magma Cavern by now. You have to keep in mind that there are some narrow parts of this track where water bombs can be especially effective. So we need to keep our eyes on items like Angel to really come out for both teams.
Yeah, already an Angel Shield in store for Dalda. He's going to try to hang on to that as long as possible. Now, while that sounds like it's going to be very clutch, that also means he's only able to cycle through one item at a time. He cannot try to keep up the tempo constantly by cycling out both. So see if KWANGDONG Freaks are able to maybe keep that tempo up, maybe get much more aggressive when it comes to their item cycling.
And cool, he's having some great cycling right now through those shields, being able to absorb a lot of the aggressive attacks coming out from Liiv Sandbox. And I love that Jimin attempted to try to execute Cool there, but Cool with a nice recovery.
Yeah, now Jimin does have an individual shield and an Angel. He actually doesn't use the first solo shield there to block out some of the attacks. Just keeping that for the time being. He's still in second place, so it could come in clutch towards the end of lap 3 once we get there.
Those water bomb chains are definitely sick, as we saw Liiv Sandbox really starting to slow down. Now World once again trying to run off with this lead, but Jimin, he's holding on to a magnet, so Liiv Sandbox not as concerned this time.
Yeah, this time no Angel Shields on the side of KWANGDONG Freaks just yet. But once again, I mean, we've seen teams that try to save Lightning Bolt until the end, and then a clutch Angel Shield comes out right near that timing, and they're not able to catch up. So Liiv Sandbox, they got to start thinking about their timings right now.
In fact, Dalda is holding on to both the Lightning and Angel himself. No Angel on the opposing side of KWANGDONG Freaks, as it seems like Jimin, he's going to lose so much momentum.
Yeah, he's pretty much slowed all the way down. A great bunch of, but in
Another
return
one.
as well, it's
These
just
water
water
bombs.
bomb after each other, but the Lightning Bolt still there. But see, an Angel Shield comes in from Sungbin. Will they be able to block that out? No, they just had used it. An item draws out that block from Sungbin, and Byung-soo takes that chance to try to catch up. He has to reset off of the magnet, but that gives a chance for Sungbin to just barely keep up his top speed, and he will slowly crawl across the finish line and bring home the second round victory.
That was the craziest finish to Mind Magma Cavern I have seen in some time, William. There were so many attacks being traded back and forth there. It feels like the lightning, once it struck on KWANGDONG Freaks, the momentum was all gone, and Liiv Sandbox, they were just gonna take it and sweep it, but it was actually KWANGDONG Freaks at the end with the better defensive timings that allowed them to secure this victory.
Yeah, very, very close. I mean, if Byung-Soo, or someone else had just reached top speed a bit earlier, maybe Liiv SANDBOX, they would have overtaken Sungbin near the end. But it is going to be this man on screen that brings home that second track victory in item mode. KWANGDONGFREECS looking to get another 3-0 here and try to take us to yet another ace match between these two teams.
And that's where KWANGDONGFREECS feels the most comfortable. They might as well send out World again if we do have that ace match. So it is incredibly important for KWANGDONGFREECS right now to focus. They just need to win one more round out of 5, whereas Liiv SANDBOX, they need to win all next 3.
Liiv SANDBOX, you can see it on Byung-Soo's face, so much going through their head right now as we take a look at some of these replays. I mean, this is where we saw double water bomb, and then another double water bomb. Everyone gets stopped from each other. Let's take a look near the ending here. Sungbin eventually, he has to use an Angel Shield to block off the missile. The lightning hits, but Byung-Soo, he gets body blocked briefly. He gets magneted, he resets to try to shoot forward his teammates, and it does look like the water was actually hit each other from each team, giving that opening for Sungbin to be able to catch up.
Yeah, the Byung-Soo, he was really trying to go for the finish line there, but once that momentum was killed, that's what gave that room for KWANGDONGFREECS to come with the comeback. And I must say, KWANGDONGFREECS, they're looking like the better team in item mode here today in Team Match Finals. We are ready to now move on into round 3 in World Tour London Night. This right here is match point for KWANGDONGFREECS. If they win here, right here, they need to go to an ace match to win phase 2. Whereas Liiv SANDBOX, they have such a formidable task ahead of them to try to avoid that ace match.
I mean, Liiv SANDBOX, even if they're able to somehow bring things back in item mode or maybe even win the ace match, then you still have to go into that phase 3, the King of the Hill ace matches, where it's basically 1v1s, the winner stays. You go through 4 racers on each side, and the last remaining racer will win. So it's a very long journey ahead for Liiv SANDBOX to try to bring things back.
So far, Cool has been doing a phenomenal job of staying in the lead for KWANGDONGFREECS, and he absorbed a lot of aggro before falling back down. You can see lightning's being held by each team, and there's an Angel on the side of Byung-Soo as well, so you have to wonder if Byung-Soo's going to be a supportive player now and stay in the back, because he might not want to cycle through his items.
Yeah, I mean, lots of kind of those wombo combo items. Now, this is one of those tracks where the Magnet Boost combo can still be very deadly, either towards the end or maybe even to use it to get onto that upper shortcut here, get that extra boost from the track itself. And we're curious to see. That's why we see a lot of boosts still being saved up. They're not being cycled right away because there are some opportunities to try to overtake each other.
And it seems like Liiv SANDBOX are really just running off with this lead right now. It's going to force Spear to pop a magnet of his own in order to catch up. And we know Dalda, he loves to be the first place coming in through the finish line for Liiv SANDBOX. So KWANGDONGFREECS, respecting that, they're going to utilize a UFO. Yeah, right now Jimin has magnet and boost combo as well. The double lightning still in favor of Liiv SANDBOX. Angel Shields as well. No Angel Shields on the side of KWANGDONGFREECS. They do get a lightning bolt of their own, but they've already been slowed down once. The lightning bolt from KWANGDONGFREECS gets negated by the Angel Shield. There's still another combo left for Byung-Soo. Dalda just sitting ahead, putting down the bananas. You still have Jimin with the magnet boost as well. Curious to see right now, Sungbin just trying to draw out some of the aggro, block off the speed from Byung-Soo. Spear shoots ahead. Can Jimin catch up? Oh! Yes, it is going to be the boost right off of the lightning bolt, slowing down his opponent. And Jimin will shoot across the finish line. The perfect picture. This is exactly what Liiv SANDBOX has been looking for. And we see why they picked London Night as they try to bring things back with one round on the board here in item mode. Sungbin was the man there for KWANGDONGFREECS, trying to come in to the finish line first, but Liiv SANDBOX, they're going to focus all their offensive items there onto Sungbin, and it gave Jimin just enough room. You can see there, 0.6 second difference coming into that finish line, and Liiv SANDBOX, now they're able to make it so that we're not getting 3-0'd by KWANGDONGFREECS here in item mode.
All right, they still have a long way to go, but they're just trying to crawl back in. Liiv SANDBOX would want nothing more than to just win this item mode, skip the ace match, take us straight to that King of the Hill 1v1 phase 3, where it basically comes down to do or die time, who just simply has the stronger racers. Will we see that happen, or will KWANGDONGFREECS just try to shut things down, take us to another ace match here that World has absolutely been dominating? We'll find out as we go into round 4 on Mine Mother Load. and the race begins. And I did find it amusing earlier when you mentioned, Peter, that KWANGDONGFREECS simply just seems to look like the stronger item mode team, because one of the interesting parts about this roster is they continue to maintain a 4-man roster. And quite frankly, maybe KWANGDONGFREECS is onto something. Why pay 5 salaries when you can pay 4 and still win all the titles?
Well, Liiv SANDBOX are definitely going to be considering that if they lose here yet again in item round 4. If KWANGDONGFREECS wins this one here, then we do have that ace match as well, where it feels like KWANGDONGFREECS somehow, they are the better team in that so far. So Liiv SANDBOX, they need to secure this round in the bag first, which is why Byung-Soo having double lightning is super helpful.
Yeah, but again, double lightning, this is one of those things where you're like, okay, well, I guess I hold on to this to the very end, but it all comes down to timing. You give so much of a chance for your opponents to try to stack up those defensive items. Of course, they'll have to get it first, so maybe they'll have to keep cycling through. We'll wait and see. But here's the other thing. World, way far out. He's got double solo shields. He's not even on the minimap right now. We can't see him on the radar. There's no way to slow him down other than the lightning bolts. So right now they need to constantly try to find some way to target him around these turns with things like the missiles before they can hit him with the lightning bolts.
And keep in mind that World, he's sitting on 2 shields right now. Pretty much an ideal itemization for a player who wants to remain in the front. Keep in mind we are here in 2nd lap. World, he may as well enter the 3rd lap soon by himself.
You have to use your lightning bolts. You can't. Yeah, you have to use it just to catch up, because otherwise World will get way too far ahead. He picks up another shield though, so Byung-Soo, his last lightning bolt, it's not going to be effective just yet. They have to find a way to target it with something. Jimin, he doesn't have an offensive item as he comes across over this ramp. That would have been an opening for him, but they're not going to find it just yet.
It's feeling like World constantly is getting double shields non-stop, and that is so ideal for KWANGDONGFREECS here. They just need World to stay in the front. In fact, Seungbin is holding on to an Angel, so it feels like KWANGDONGFREECS, they're gonna take this lead all the way, maybe.
Yeah, Angel shield, another EMP in the book for World, another solo shield. There is simply nothing that is going to stop this man. He blocks attack after attack after attack. Now we do have one last lightning bolt from Byung-Soo, finally catching up. World, all that shield stacking, it's caught up to him for the time being. They send another UFO as well, and then the lightning bolt to make sure, but the water bomb, it slows down Liiv SANDBOX as they try to catch up. Now it's neck and neck. World gets bumped off the ramp, loses speed, and Liiv SANDBOX. What a dramatic race as they tie things 2-2 in item mode.
The Soo duos, they finally did it. They were able to stop the rampage from KWANGDONGFREECS. They won the body check off the ramp, and they came in together as the duo brothers that we know and love. Liiv SANDBOX now tying up item mode here in phase 2, 2-2.
Man, I will say, looking at the items that were coming up constantly on both sides, it just looked like there was no way possible. But just a couple of those timely magnets and other attacks coming in from Liiv SANDBOX allows Dalta to catch up. He then quickly just gives away first place because they know they can secure that UFO, which means they guarantee the lightning bolt as the other shields won't be coming out in time. And then it was eventually the Yusu duo where, I mean, World, he still has a shot, right? If he didn't get bumped off that ramp, you get to continue to ride that acceleration alongside your opponents. You would have had a chance to overtake them, but they just knock him right down. They say, no, this is our race to continue.
I love that Dalda, his shot calling was on point there, just as you said, Will. You can't hold on to that double lightning forever. When you gotta use it, you just gotta do it. And Byung-Soo, I feel like he utilized it at the right time, and it gave enough space for Jimin to catch up, and that's when KWANGDONGFREECS, they started to really falter because their original plan of running off with the all retire has been crushed.
Well, all racers around the world, Liiv SANDBOX is currently one step away from bringing us to our very first King of the Hill Phase 3 in the KDL. Tied up in item mode 2-2, currently leading Phase 2 with that speed win. Liiv SANDBOX takes us to the very last round of item mode on Factory Brody's Gloom.
This item round 5 is going to determine the fate here. Liiv SANDBOX, if they win, they're able to win phase 2 completely. So KWANGDONGFREECS, they need to win this at all costs and have another chance in the ace match.
Yeah, KWANGDONGFREECS, I mean, they feel so confident in ace matches. Surely they throw everything they have right now here on Brody's Gloom. We do see just a bit of a reset here. We're still continuing the race. Of course, the racer's unaffected, and we do see that it is currently Liiv SANDBOX that is keeping up that heavy lead.
Hyunsu is holding on to a banana of his own, not much defensive items there, but he's able to stay in the lead just fine. And for Kwangdong Freaks, they're seeming like they want to keep World in the lead there. He's going to quickly cycle through the EMP. Unfortunately for him, a UFO is going to catch on to him right after that.
Yeah, I just saw Cool way ahead on the screen right there, going right towards that middle door. I was like, oh, I don't know, Cool, but he correctly paces himself just to get through just fine. Once again, it does look like Kwangdong Freaks are constantly trying to put World way ahead to try to keep that lead, but Hyunsu and Dalda, they will move forward. Hyunsu with double EMPs, surely he will cycle through those as we approach the items here. But right now, Dalda, he's got that Angel Shield and Lightning Bolt still. He's going to be holding on to that to the very end.
And Hyunsu is going to get slowed down by the UFO there. It allows World to once again take the lead. We've seen this strategy from Kwangdong Freaks many times today where they want World to stay in the front, but keep in mind that he is surrounded by 2 players from Liiv SANDBOX. Dalda, he's holding on to that combo we talk about, Angel and Lightning, that you may not cycle through, but somehow he's still in the lead.
Yeah, and World, he's just trying to get ahead because he knows he has that one solo shield to defend against himself. But earlier, Hyunsu, we saw a great body block from him once again by Dalda, as well as Hyunsu this time kept up the acceleration off of the boost. He's able to reach his top speed. World, he has to start cycling through his items to try to catch up to this duo of Liiv SANDBOX. Hyunsu's still safe though. Now the water bomb, now it trades off to Dalda. I mean, this is why it helps to have 2 members in the front.
World is holding on to a double magnet here. That is going to be a scary combination for the likes of Byungsu, who wants to stay in the lead. A Lightning's going to come out in excellent fashion, and it's going to allow Byungsu to punch in a victory here in item mode of Phase 2 for Liiv SANDBOX.
And that will tie up the phases, which means, ladies and gentlemen, we see our first ever King of the Hill Phase 3 in team matches of the KDL. In Preseason 1, Kwangdong Freaks was able to shut down Phase 1 and 2 in the ace matches, taking down both Neil and Insu in those 1v1s. But this time, correctly adjusting the draft, correctly adjusting the calls, coming into Phase 2, Liiv SANDBOX bounces right back with a dominant performance. And now each team will be preparing their roster, lineup, and order for the King of the Hill 1v1.
I am so glad that we get to finally witness the first ever King of the Hill here in KDL Preseason, Will, and the fact that Liiv SANDBOX, they were able to bounce back in Phase 2 there, despite Phase 1 going horribly wrong for them. It really shows the level of mental these players have. They're not easily shaken up by losing, and they earned themselves the right to play in Phase 3.
Yeah, I mean, both teams playing their hearts out. Quite frankly, it looked like Kwangdong Freaks was going to bring us to another ace match, and at that point, I would have been worried just because of World's dominance. But Liiv SANDBOX, they turned things around in the 3rd round of item mode here in Phase 2, complete the reverse sweep. They got the 3-0 in speed mode as well. So momentum currently on the side of Liiv SANDBOX as they trade Phase 1 and 2 against each other.
It's so crazy, Will. I love the fact that we're seeing a different result now here in Preseason 2. And Liiv SANDBOX, I feel like this is a team where you can't really put a finger on any of their weakness. They've played good in both speed and item. If anything, it was the ace matches. And now, if you take a thought about what King of the Hill is, it essentially is an ace match happening over and over and over again. So it's time for Liiv SANDBOX to prove that Kwangdong Freaks isn't the better ace match team.
Yeah, and it's about the order that you submit your roster as well, right? There are certain tendencies of, who you race better against each other, and of course, depending on the win-loss, how you continue that track selection to try to keep up that advantage. Curious to see. We'll have to go through all of the rules for Phase 3 once we get ready for it. But basically, again, if you missed it, it's a King of the Hill. You submit your rosters ahead of time. It's the 1v1s, and then the winner stays, and the losing team will submit their next racers to challenge and try to take down the opposing team. Well, that's going to be coming up after this break. We will continue the grand finals in KDL Preseason 2 between Liiv SANDBOX and Kwangdong Freaks.
또 말하는 순간 5초 단대 틀려버리네요. 계속. 아니 그럴 만큼 혼란합니다.
갑자기 미들 2, 3, 4, 5를 다 가져가고 있던 락스였는데 성빈이 일부러 약간 속도를 줄인 것 같거든요. 뭔가 해주려고 했었는데 잘 안 됐어요.
스피어가 지금 무리하는 이유가 있죠. 만약에 병마용 진입했는데 이렇게 뭉쳐있으면
아니 다들 정말 진입 안 했잖아요.
이게 오히려 광동에게 호재.
이래서 광동이 올라갑니다. 또 이거 무슨 경기죠?
와 이거 띵은 못 따라잡을 가능성이 조금 크고 이거 성빈이 막아줘야죠. 이러면 2, 3, 4를 해야 되니까
2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 5, 7 이게 8대2 고정이라 2, 3, 5, 7도 되거든요.
1, 4, 5도 되고요.
와우
올라 갑자기 이러면 근데 락스예요. 이러면
네.
또 락스예요.
2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4밖에 없습니다.
이러면 성빈을 물고 늘어져야 돼요.
스페리 버튼에 스페리 버튼에 스페리
우리의
버튼.
스펠 괜찮거든요.
화장실 갔다 온 스펠.
이야 시원해진 스펠.
시원한 스펠. 이것이 쿨 스펠.
후련하죠 이 선수.
너무나도 개운합니다 스펠.
광동 프리스 입장에서도 맨 마지막에 이거 충순이가 안 될 것 같으니까 스펠을 막으려고 할 수밖에 없었고요. 하지만 시원하게 뚫어버렸습니다.
야 진짜 몸놀리며 가벼웠습니다.
삼자 동률 34.
그렇죠.
네.
그러셨던 것처럼 루닝 선수가 드랩 타이밍이 나왔는데도 불구하고 살짝 속도 줄여주면서 근데 이러면 오히려 히어로에게 기회가 생기는 거거든요.
그래서 히어로가 왔습니다. 근데 딜은 치고 달릴 수 있고요.
네.
지금 드랩거리가 약간 애매한 거리의 루닝이었기 때문에 속도 붙이기 쉽지 않아요.
야 그래도 감속까지 최대한 해주면서 결국은 직선 구간에서 이거 드랩 타이밍 히어로도 나오거든요.
오, 아주 위험한 정도 파고듭니다. 그랬다면 따라잡기 쉽지 않다고 판단하고 있어요. 히어로도.
이거 직선 구간 지나가고 나면 히어로도 드랩 발동시킬 수
이거
있겠는데요.
원투가 드랩을 너무 잘 바꿔 가다 보니까 근데 어차피 앞쪽에서 감속인 상황
여기부터 걸려요.
이 구간에서 국각 골자에서 과연 앞쪽 뒤를 스피탑
이러면 히어로도 돌았어요.
근데 거리가
근데 일단 보이는데.
이제
포기하면 안 돼요.
싸울지를 봐야죠.
어차피
싸울지를.
이 구간 실수도 있기 때문에 포기하면 안 돼요.
루링.
정말 영리하게 닐과 루닝이 마지막 구간에서 싸움보다는 공존을 택했습니다.
쉽지 않은 상황이었었습니다. 그런데 닐은 결국은 기적을 만들어내면서 결승전에 합류했고요. 루닝은 자이언트 킬러가 아니고 이제 본인이 자이언트가 됐어요.
진짜 어마어마하게 성장을 한 선수라는 생각이 들고 참 닐의 생명력 무섭습니다. 그리고 첫 랩에 지금 사실상 6, 7, 8위를 터지게 만들 수 있는 거거든요. 여기도 속도를 줄이면 돼요.
로드만이 위에 최고의
못 가요.
존재감이거든요.
네, 못 가요.
또 못 가요?
네.
야 이거 지미.
또 못 가요.
이거 완전 감소.
네. 쫑이 조금만 늦게 반응했으면 아예 그냥 진짜 경기 터졌을 수도 있어요.
불가능 수준이 아니고 그곳으로 갈 뻔했거든요.
네.
이러면은 지금 띵은요 답답하죠. 아 이거 언제 올라오는 거지? 내가 뭘 해야 되나? 지금 이거는 돼요.
이제 한 가지 가능성밖에 없을 것 같습니다. 띵이 아예 그냥 경마용 구간에서 무쌍 찍는 거.
근데 기점이라고 할 수 있는 이 트랙 지금 약간 불안한 상황 속에 스펠만 뚫었습니다. 아직도 쫑과 조지 안 했고요.
정우 선수가 조금 이제 아래쪽으로 내려오면서 이러면 사이클에서 띵은 조금 덜 부담되거든요. 방금 전보다는.
네.
병수가 아까 잘 막는 거 보여줬죠?
예, 그리고 인코스를 한번 더 열어놨다가 타이트하게 막으면 스페르과 쫑이 동시에 걸릴 수도 있어요.
이러면은 앞쪽에 오히려 쫑이 드랩 받고 먼저 가면서 여기서 드랩으로 뭔가 해결한다 일 것 같은데요.
이거 띵이 속도 조절해야 됩니다. 지금 빨리 도망가는 게 문제가 아니에요.
이거 병수 건드렸는데 지민이랑 벽이 또 있고 2, 3, 4 아직 유지 중 리브
1등을
세트 왔어요.
한다면 이거 3등 가고 나면 괜찮거든요. 1등을 한다고 봤을 때 3등까지 하면 되거든요. 자, 2, 3, 4를 그냥 내주나요?
1, 4, 5를 보고 있나요? 근데 지민이 좀 멀긴 하거든요.
일단
지민이
나면 돼요?
어떻게 일단은 수치가 뒤로 붙었어요.
일상,
근데
일상.
1위는 일단은 넘어갔는데
안 될 것
4위가
같아요.
만들어지기가 어렵습니다. 도령 1위 닐입니다.
3명의 같은 팀원이 연속적으로 코너링을 가져갈 때 앞쪽에서 인코스 사고가 나면 얼마나 치명적인지가 첫 번째 랩에서 나왔었죠. 지민의 손에 의해서.
네, 지민 선수가 정말 오랫동안 시간을 잘 끌어줬었어요. 그러다 보니까 뭐 그 포지션에서 닐은 실수할 이유가 전혀 없었고 띵 선수에게 승을 잠깐 내주긴 했었지만 그 작업에 당하지 않았다는 게 결국은 승리할 수 있었던 거죠.
쪽이 실드 2개로 위쪽으로 올라갔습니다만 달다도 물속에 빠르게 빠져나갑니다. 두 선수 모두.
사이드.
야, 사이즈도 잘 탔고요. 타이밍도 약간 애매했고요.
네, 이런 것들이 결국은 정말 그 미세한 차이를 만들어내는데 그러니까 결국 샌드박스 달다 선수가 영입되고 나서 어떠한 컬러감을 보여줄 것이냐고 봤을 때 아직 조금 더 만들어내야 된다고 보거든요. 지금 순위가
선수 지민이 막 때려 놓고 있습니다.
네.
이거 올라가고 있는 선수 어디 있어요? 달다는.
어렵게 만들어낸 저 번개가 사용이 되는 순간이 이거 답이 없네. 이거
이거
답이 없는데요. 이거는.
이거 한 방이 더 커졌거든요. 무리 한 3개 거리 정도 될 것 같은데요.
달다 너무 먼데요.
그러니까 번개가 사용이 된다는 얘기는 답이 없어서 어쨌거나 사용을 한 거거든요.
근데 실드가 빠지고 있는데 다시 한번 또 실드.
예.
실드가 무한 리필이네요.
거기다가 지민 선수가 가드라인 형성이 됐거든요.
무한 리필 칩니다. 셀프예요.
물팔이 날아오고요.
타겟팅이 안 되기 시작하고요. 미사일은.
일단은 실드 하나 더 있고 또 실드.
와 이거 해지도 하나 있으면 완벽하게 막을 수 있습니다.
자 이거 얼마 안 남았거든요.
와,
샌드박스.
물 이거 사장님이 안 좋아할 만한 무한 리필 칩인데 계속 무한 리필해서 먹고 있어요. 살다가
저 거기다 이번에 바나나까지 마지막은 역시나 후식으로 마무리.
달달하죠. 달달하죠. 달달이가 달달하죠.
이게 될까라는 생각이 있었는데도 불구하고 스노우를 잘 굴렸고요. 근데 달타 선수가 단순히 이제 템전만 이해도가 높은 게 아니고 스피드전에 대한
네.
이제 주행력도 좋은 선수이기 때문에 깔끔하게 또 주행해준 것도 한몫했습니다.
이거 워낙 마지막까지 봐야 되는 트랙이긴 한데 초반에 일단 기분 좋은 출발하고 있는 락스고요.
여기서도 앞쪽이 먼저 가고 뒤치가 뒤로 살짝만 둘러주면서 팀이 또 1대 고정할 수 있고 지금 조절하거든요. 뒤쪽에도.
승비가 포지션 좋은데 도치가 만만치 않네요. 그래서 스피어가 일단 합류.
부담감이 생길 수밖에 없습니다. 위험 구간에서 잘못했다가 성빈마저 나가 떨어지면 진짜 걷잡을 수 없게 되거든요.
그러면서 부치와 팀이 서로 드랩 타임을 살짝 바꿔가면서 앞으로 먼저 보내주고요. 물론 스피어가 오랫동안 버텨주고 있고요. 툴이 올라왔다는 게 약간의 변수가 됐어요.
완전히 확 꼈죠 갑자기.
여기 뭉치면 큰일 날 수 있는데요.
일단 버스 넘어갔는데 일단 순위는 아직까지는 락스.
거의 다 뭉쳐가요. 이거는 그냥 몰라요 어떻게 될지.
잔디밭 구간에 들어갔을 때 이것을 누가 먼저 선점하고 막을 수 있느냐를 봐야 되겠습니다.
세 명이 다 들어왔죠. 세 명이 다 광동은.
자 그리고 순간적으로 다시 쪽이 잡았고요. 이거 아직 모르는 순이에요 이거는.
이거 순위는 지금 버려야 거예요. 순위 마지막 어떻게 해요 순위?
자 이거 1세트 잡아오는 팀이 누가 될지 아직 몰라요.
와 이거 스피어가 잘 막았죠.
자 끼어들었습니다. 일단은 쿨은 아래쪽으로 내려와 있고.
쪽 1등 지키나요? 쪽 1등 지키나요? 성민이 과감하게 들어가나요? 성민이 이 코스 먼저 앞쪽 들어갔고요.
일단 위로 올라오는데 손들이고.
맨 마지막에
스피어가 위로 올라가죠. 일부러.
스피드.
자 이러면 스피어.
2-4-5-7 2-4-5-7.
근데 락스대 이러면서
1-4-5.
이거 맞아 광동.
와 1-4-5가 됐네요.
와 진짜 마지막에 진짜 이렇게 치열한 경기 잘 보기 드뭅니다.
특히 스피어가 포스 이탈인가 싶을 정도의 그 빌드가 있거든요. 스피어가 그 위쪽으로 올라가서 상대방이 딜을 못 받도록 하는 판단 굉장했습니다.
The grand finals continues as we enter phase 3 here in KDL Preseason 2. The battle continues between Liiv SANDBOX and KWANGDONGFREECS, as I myself will chill and Peter will bring you the action. And phase 3 is a bit of a unique setup here.
Yeah, we love to see this happen for the first time, the King of the Hill format, and it's going to be really interesting because each team needs to pick the first representative to play in round number 1, and whoever loses that match needs to replace with another player, and of course the winner of that track 1 will get to choose the track for round 2 as well.
Yeah, so if you win that, or whichever track you win, you basically get to say, okay, the next battle, I want to be here, this is where I'm staying, and then the challenge team will say, okay, who do we send out to that track? So there is a bit of a mind game here, of course, right? So the format does give you a little bit of a comeback mechanic, but it also doesn't like force the winning person to always have to play at a disadvantage. So I think it's fairly well balanced, but of course the order is going to matter, especially because as we wait to find out who the first racers are, this one, the track is done by a draw, right? Neither player gets to select it. So you're kind of putting up, okay, who do we think is going to be able to defend for the longest time in this King of the Hill?
That's actually a very interesting way to put it because we know some players are great at clutching it and going for the draft moments, but drafts are not successful all the time. So just as you put it, you maybe want to focus on putting players in the front that are known for really being good at running away with their builds. A player like that stands out for Liiv SANDBOX is Byung-Soo, so I wonder if we're going to be able to see him.
Well, yeah, the first track is going to be WKC Singapore Circuit. Now, a bit of a wider track, right? Not too many crazy turns. And it does mean that is going to be Byung-Soo coming out for Liiv SANDBOX. Cool on the other side. He was the champion of the solo matches in Preseason 1. Of course, this time we crowned Looning yesterday. But here's the thing. I think the other reason you put out Byung-Soo is, right, he is the newest addition when it comes to your speed mode racers on Liiv SANDBOX. Don't force him to be in that pressure spot, right? Just say, hey, go out. If you lose, that's fine. It's King of the Hill. We have other racers that can try to bring things back. Just play your race. It is, again, a wider track. Not too many risks of going for these crazy collisions. No shortcuts, no jumps, nothing like that. This is just a race of pure skill to kick things off here in Phase 3 between Liiv SANDBOX and KWANGDONGFREECS on WKC Singapore Circuit. And the race is off, a continuous 1v1 as both racers trying to break apart from each other and just make sure they are able to get these cuts to build up that boost gauge.
Yeah, and you can see Byung-Soo, he really prioritized that boost gauge, taking a wider cut, and that's paid off because now he has a significant lead in that gauge currently, so he's able to really just time whenever he wants to pass by Cool.
Yeah, and now the question is, do you always just stay behind until you get towards the end of lap 2? That's when you use the draft, because if you draft forward too early, you basically give that opportunity for Cool to try to draft off of you once again to overtake. Byung-Soo, I like what he's doing, continuously just putting pressure on Cool, but using the draft to pressure rather than to overtake.
That is definitely the story between the two players right now. As Byung-Soo, he looked for a sharp inner there as Cool went for a wider turn, but Cool is still able to maintain this lead, which is what Cool is so known for.
Yeah, off of that bridge straight away, Cool actually saves his second boost. He realizes Byung-Soo lost too much speed off of the earlier collision, and he's able to now break away by staying ahead in that boost gauge as well. So Byung-Soo losing the advantage he had in the very first part of the track. Now it's all about catch-up, not quite in draft range just yet. Byung-Soo's going to have to play a bit more aggressively to try to get in range.
It feels like the calm pace for Byung-Soo has definitely been broken now. You look at the boost gauge, Cool is so far ahead, and Byung-Soo, he's absolutely playing catch-up here, but he also needs to build up more boost gauge somehow.
Yeah, just got the draft though, so that gives him an advantage to catch back up. Now he needs to stay in line with the boost so that off of the next couple drafts, he's able to catch up and overtake. Cool tries to swing around, block him out. Byung-Soo realizes that he's now caught all up. He will have one more opportunity to get that draft. He's trying to stay right behind him. The draft comes in. Can he overtake on this turn by using the acceleration? Cool with another nice block.
Cool is playing so out of his mind right now with all these blocks coming in. Byung-Soo not able to find the answer to Cool's lead here. Byung-Soo going for the wider turn, but Cool with the inner. He's still in the lead.
Yeah, one more draft opportunity around this corner, but it's not going to be enough as Cool continuously blocks him out. Byung-Soo, do you have another chance? It does not look like it. The draft comes in. He's just trying to use it to try to overtake at the speed, but it is not going to be enough as Cool crosses the finish line and defends the spot so far for the KWANGDONGFREECS.
That was a victory in classic Cool fashion if I've ever seen one. It feels like Cool, he was just in the lead throughout that whole entire race, not bothered by the fact that Byung-Soo, he took a line that was able to provide that boost gauge advantage in the earlier phase for Byung-Soo. Cool just focusing on his own game while in the lead, and he was able to catch up in the boost gauge as well.
Yeah, Byung-Soo just trying to break away off of that very last draft. It brought him so close, right? 0.1 seconds. But alas, Cool just a bit too far ahead. Now Cool gets 30 seconds to select the next track. We'll have a chance to discuss with his coach. Of course, this is still a team effort as it is a team match. It's simply King of the Hill 1v1. The reason I think this discussion with the coach is very important is because you can't just simply pick the track that you feel like racing, because you might have to let your other racers now try to challenge Liiv SANDBOX later should you lose one of these early 1v1s. So you want to make sure that enough of your favorite tracks are left over so you can cycle through at the right pace. Now it does look like a little hand signal on maybe the global star of not just Liiv SANDBOX but the KDL. Maybe he will be coming up to challenge.
Yeah, that is the interesting part about this round too, because now Liiv SANDBOX, they also have 30 seconds to go through the discussion within their teammates and coaches to figure out who is the most optimal player here to go against Cool, and you have to kind of decide based on the playstyle. Cool, he likes to just stay in first place, so do you want to choose a player who accelerates in timing the drafts, maybe like Neil.
Now, I mean, New York Rally, this is one where Neil has shown some great plays, right, when it comes to these 1v1s. So we'll wait to find out. Of course, the losing team gets to select their racer after the track, so they know what to challenge on, right, where you will be taking on that challenge against the current defending racer of that hill. Currently, it's Cool leading KWANGDONGFREECS in a 1-0, knocking out Pyeongsu here in Phase 3 of these two teams.
And it seems like so far, Liiv SANDBOX, they've taken that time to pick their player carefully, and it has been decided. So in just a few moments, we will get to see who's going up against Cool here in round 2. And honestly, Will, I can't really put my finger on anybody here, but Liiv SANDBOX is saying they put their finger on Jimin.
Okay, so they saw New York Rally and they bring out Jimin. Now, I imagine they're trying to save their more veteran players in Hyunsu and especially Neil for the potential very difficult tracks that are remaining, right? Things like Mine Winding Slopes, you know, some of those other tracks, maybe even, you know, a Crazy Facility 5, Terracotta Twister. Those are tracks where you want to bring out your, you know, ace veterans to play in this 1v1. Now, of course, Jimin, a very skilled racer in his own right, but he used to be that item ace, you know, competed in solos here and there, and continue to prove himself now moving in as a hybrid role. But now he has to prove himself for the team. Here in the Grand Finals, Phase 3, we go to Track 2. It is Cool selection of World Tour New York Rally as Liiv SANDBOX sends Jimin out for the challenge.
We kickstart our round 2 of the King of the Hill in the finals Phase 3. Cool once again trying to knock out another player from Liiv SANDBOX here as we see Jimin. He's trying to stay in the lead this time.
Yeah, I mean, I love that we see more and more racers going for these very aggressive starts, right? Completely blocked out Cool in the beginning. And again, Jimin constantly going for the out-to-in lines around these corners to make sure he blocks out Cool. And Cool, that fake's just absolutely brilliant. Makes it look like he's going to try to cut inwards and then boost straight forward on the outer track. And that throws off Jimin, where Cool is able to maintain his top speed to try to overtake him.
And right now, Jimin is forced to play catch-up again. And keep in mind, there's only one lap here. So Cool taking that collision is going to be a huge opportunity for Jimin now to build up some lead.
Yeah, but Cool correctly goes under as well. He's really been preferring that build that he showed us earlier in the team mode as well. Now, once again off that draft, Cool overtakes Jimin as we go into the park area, entering the second half of the track. Draft range still applicable for both racers.
Keep in mind that Cool has such a big advantage in the draft, in the boost gauge right now. So Jimin, he needs to play catch up, but he's also having so much pressure applied to him as we see Cool already positioning himself for the blocks.
Yeah, but the swift cuts come into play for Jimin as he is able to catch up in boost and using the draft to pressure Cool. Cool just tries to stay ahead by cutting way too close to the wall. Now he has to catch up, but will he even get into draft range as we enter the straightaway? It doesn't look like it. Jimin just using the boost right away as it fills up because he knows he is in the lead. You can see him laughing. He even does a little ceremony spin towards the end as he's able to take down the indomitable Cool and tie things up 1-1 here in Phase 3.
This is such a nice achievement for Jimin here. He's able to win against the likes of Cool, who's so good at any matches involving pretty much the concept of speed. And the fact that Jimin in the previous preseason, he came in as the item ace, and now in preseason 2, he had to prove that he's able to play in these speed modes. And if you're able to beat Cool in a 1v1, what better way can you prove yourself?
And just the way he did it too. I mean, absolutely calculated, right? He pressures him there. You would have still had a chance. Now, of course, you can't celebrate for too long. You got 30 seconds to select the next track. I'm curious. Honestly, I kind of want to see Liiv SANDBOX take on the challenge on Mine 3 shortcuts at some point, right? This is a track that KWANGDONGFREECS has been avoiding in team mode all throughout the day in both Phase 1 and 2. It's something that plagued them in previous team matches as well. Now, obviously, it's not as chaotic when it's just a 1v1, but, I mean, you need to be so aware of potential collisions. Oh, no, it's going to be Terracotta Twister. Another one that KWANGDONGFREECS struggled with a bit. However, curiously enough, like you mentioned earlier during Phase 1 and 2, Peter, this is one that Liiv SANDBOX banned out when it was a 4v4.
And that is why it's going to be now a nice form of strategy that Guangdong Freaks can utilize to figure out the players. The coach actually looked really excited coming onto stage, and you can see him really smiling because they know that the ball is in their park now.
Yeah, of course, it is World, Spear, and Sungbin remaining. I wonder if on the side of Liiv SANDBOX, this is also a bit of a gambit to try to draw out World, right? I mean, this is a track that he's raced on so much. He's been that power ace for the Kwangdong Freaks when they needed it the most. It looked like it. He motioned that he'll take it as well. He puts his earbuds in, and that's the thing. If you can draw him out early on, and then if Jimin takes down World, I mean, you take down World and Cool, of course. I mean, Sungbin and Spear very good in their own rights, but takes a lot of pressure off of Liiv SANDBOX's back.
That's why Jimin is playing that secret weapon right now for Liiv SANDBOX. He was already able to take out Cool, and I think that alone feels like he's done more than enough. But just as you put it, Will, Jimin was able to force out the Ace Match King, World himself, who was able to beat Liiv SANDBOX earlier today in the Phase 1, and now he's trying to prove himself yet again as an Ace Match victor.
And here's the thing, you saw what happened on New York Rally World. You already have to consider, is Jimin gonna go for another aggressive start? Should I look to avoid him? Should I look to battle him? I mean, this is the thing that happens when you have these King of the Hills. The macro mind games from round to round start to pile up. And currently, it is on the table of World to figure out, how do I solve this question of Jimin's start? Is it going to be an aggressive one? Is he going to take it passive? Will he let me keep the lead until the very end? Jimin has thrown the question over, and it's World's job to figure out the answer.
And I'm sure that World is a player that will be able to figure that just fine, because he's been able to maneuver around so many different types of opponents here in the KDL. And as he looks to take down Jimin here in round 3, we will be taken to World Tour Terracotta Twister.
Tied 1-1 in Phase 3. World says, no, I'm just going to get the better start boost and make sure Jimin doesn't even have a chance to come up on that aggressive battle. Currently, World, when it comes to ace matches, 7 wins, 1 loss in the KDL preseason. Jimin, this was his first time playing in a team mode 1v1. He takes down Cool to start off his ace career.
And you can see the play style between Jimin and World really coming into play right here. Both players really preferring to stay in the lead. You can see Jimin and World constantly taking aggressive turns in order to get back that first place, like this right here from World.
Yeah, but Jimin, he actually forced the slowdown from World, but he goes a bit too far on that first curve, just trying to avoid each other.
Ooh.
The twists and turns, but World will recover. However, he loses too much speed. He hits the bump. He's just trying to stay alive, and Jimin takes that opportunity to boost ahead.
Jimin has such a nice lead for himself right now, and as we take a look at the boost gauge, it is pretty evenly matched. World, if anything, slightly in the lead here. Now he's going to try to apply more pressure and go for the outer line here, force Jimin to come back in, and that's going to give World some advantage here.
Yeah, but Jimin currently absolutely has the initiative, right? World's just working off of drafts, and it looks like Jimin is absolutely one step ahead of him. He knows the exact moves that World likes to make. He's constantly just very aware of the draft timings. Right now, not giving it up. Now, Jimin takes a bit too close of a turn. Will lose that acceleration. Now he has to play a bit of catch-up. The draft will help him.
You can see the pressure getting to both players right now, constantly exchanging hands. But this tomb section of Terracotta Twister, this is the final time we are going through it. So it is important for the draft from Jimin.
And Jimin will overtake for the time being. Both of them losing so much speed around that first turn. Neither of them wanting to drop. The draft comes in for Jimin again. He is able to continue to accelerate. He's going from the out to in around the snake turn, but it's not enough just yet. One more draft off the jump. Jimin will try to bump World out. He takes over. Will another draft come in for World? Yes, it does, but Jimin blocks him. No, he does not.
Oh my goodness.
World able to keep the straight course despite the bump, and will be able to take over Jimin as he brings the lead back to the Kwangdong Freaks.
That match, the whole entire time, Jimin and World kept trying to stay in the lead. There was no timing draft this time around. It was any time an opportunity arises, I'm gonna be in the front. And near the end of that, World was able to take a big advantage. Jimin, he was forced to play defensively, and that made him lose speed.
Man, I feel like Jimin definitely had a very good idea, and I think the plan was solid, but World not phased. I mean, the collision, Jimin would have had to take a much harder turn to absolutely strong stop World, or maybe even just be absolutely ahead of him for a hard stop. And World knows that Jimin didn't have that leisure, so World just stays his course. That's how he's able to maintain his acceleration. Track selection ends even within 15 seconds. And World says, oh, welcome back. I mean, you guys have Hyunsu and Neil left. I've taken down both racers on Mine Winding Slopes. Which one will it be this time?
And you can see this time around, Liiv SANDBOX, they're in for a deep discussion here. It's not about smiles and excitement anymore. You have to be really careful now, given that Kwangdong Freaks, they've knocked out 2 of your players. So now you only have Hyunsu and Neil left. And both players are very proficient in speed mode. You can consider them the aces of the team. And you have to wonder who's going to be saved for last.
I mean, both of them, they challenged World on this track this year when it came to the Liiv SANDBOX Kwangdong Freeks ace matches. Neither of them able to get that victory. I mean, for Hyunsu, it was just a moment ago. And World so confident on this track. That's why it only took a mere, 10, 15 seconds to decide when you were given that 30-second window. Kwangdong Freeks, seems like once they got over that kind of gambit from Jimin to call out, onto Terracotta Twister, they now feel very confident in the upcoming track selection. How the rest of the rounds will go as both teams go towards that trophy, and it's going to be the Neo World rematch.
We love seeing this rematch here. It's been a while since we've seen it. And Neil having the record against him. World has beat him here previously, so it's going to be a time for redemption today.
Yeah, and Neil, a lot of pressure on this guy. He's such a star player, and yet so far in the KDL, right, as we kicked things off with the preseason so far in 2023, the 1v1s have not been kind to him. The solo match, 8-man races, the team races, they've all been good to him. But the 1v1s, he needs to prove himself, and what a better chance than to start things off against World here on Mine Winding Slopes.
We go off into round 4 of King of the Hills of Phase 3, and it seems like Liiv SANDBOX, they only have 2 players left, so Neil, he needs to try to knock out World. As we see, Neil, he does have a nice lead.
Yeah, now what happened right from the start is both of them going for that aggressive start. World tries to cut out Neil, but as World not able to recover from his swift cuts too much, Neil able to just use the draft to get ahead very early on. And World, while he is absolutely in draft range, we already go through the first jumps, and World, he's not going to have too many more opportunities to try to pressure Neil.
Absolutely, that jump really killed a lot of momentum for World there, whereas Neil, he's been having a phenomenal time on his own in the front, and you can see the boost gauge, also Neil leading slightly.
And Neil with a great positioning off of that first jump, but he will be able to just barely recover. He doesn't hit that wall there, he just gives way for World as Neil wanted to slow down, make sure he doesn't collide into the wall off of that jump. He puts himself back in position for the drafts, trying to catch up to World. Now we are nearing the end towards the hairpins. This was where World was able to absolutely shut down Hyunsu earlier, but World hits the wall. He loses a lot of acceleration. He uses the spin turn to recover, and Neil just says, I have one more chance. Another draft coming up towards the end here. No, he barely not able to really fill up the draft gauge, and World will fly towards the finish line, defending the hill once again.
World is showing up big time for Kwangdong Freeks right now. He showed up in round 3. He knocked down Jimin, and now he manages to knock down Neil once again here in the Winding Slopes. And it seems like World, the reason why we call him the Ace Match Slayer, is really showing up today here in the Phase 3 of the Team Match Finals. Liiv SANDBOX, their backs are pushed against the wall.
And here's the thing, like you said, you're down to your last racer. World knows who it's going to be. Hyunsu, the captain of Liiv SANDBOX, remaining to try to command the fleet to victory, but he will have to go through 3 remaining members of the Kwangdong Freeks. Nothing short of a miracle, but here we go. World, where does he feel most comfortable to take on Hyunsu, who he took down earlier today on that track we just saw, Mine Winding Slopes?
It feels like World is just the final boss right now for Liiv SANDBOX that they need to get over. It's been such a big hurdle for them, but he's not even the final boss, which is why there's so much pressure on Hyunsu here to perform, and it seems like the track is going to be Mine 3 shortcuts.
Wow, really? Kwangdong Freeks picks up Mine 3 shortcuts. Now no discussion needed, as it's just one racer remaining. The one who used to be the youngest, right? The rookie on the side of Liiv SANDBOX for the longest time. Now rises as the captain. Try to command the fleet in spirit of his former captains, of his former veteran brothers like Insu, Seungha, even Seungtae from a while before. Hyunsu, can he bring the glory back home for Liiv SANDBOX? Or will Kwangdong Freaks continue to be the back-to-back preseason champions in the KDL? We find out in round 5 on Mind 3 Shortcuts.
You can see the difference right now in the mindset between Hyunsu and World. World just looks so calm and collected because even if World loses, he knows he has 2 more teammates to back him up. Whereas for Hyunsu, if he loses this one, it is over for Liiv SANDBOX. So he needs to somehow recover for his team here in Mind 3 Shortcuts.
Hyunsu against the world. Liiv SANDBOX versus Kwangdong Freaks. We are in round 5 in the King of the Hill Phase 3. Hyunsu leads, but this is a 3-lapper, and of course, it's called 3 Shortcuts for a reason. We get towards that magma near the end, and anything could happen.
That is why it's going to be absolutely pivotal that both players stay focused till the end. It's all about consistency right now, not about who's leading for the time being. And as we see the boost gauge, World, he's holding a better grasp on that right now.
Yeah, Hyunsu earlier just slows down, try to get a stop against World, doesn't want to risk anything, doesn't want to ruin his build just to try to stay ahead. And Hyunsu will be able to recover, of course. They are both still right next to each other, and both of them seemingly very aware this is a long marathon. World with a nice bump against Hyunsu forces him to slow all the way down, but World, he's going to actually hit a bump against the wall himself, so it's back to square one between these two racers as we enter.
Oh my
man,
goodness, Hyunsu!
The bait from Hyunsu. He looks like he's way too close to the edge. World tries to reset on his build, and he tries to just go for the block at the same time. World absolutely spins out of control into the lava, and now it's all up to World to try to catch up. Hyunsu unseen on the radar.
It's so hard right now for World to catch up. The pressure is all on the shoulders of World, whereas Hyunsu, all he needs to do now in this final lap is stick to his line.
Oh man, the aggressive hit off of that jump in the second lap, now coming back to bite World, and Hyunsu, all he has to do, like you said, not make a mistake. You can see it in the picture-in-picture. He's just playing it safe. He's not taking any risks, and while World does catch up because of the slight extra boost he's trying to collect, it's not going to be enough. Hyunsu's still a boost in the bank, and he will fly across the finish line. The captain keeps the Armada alive, afloat for one extra round.
The mountain of World that's constantly held Liiv SANDBOX back is finally defeated by the captain of Liiv SANDBOX, Hyunsu himself. He's done the impossible, and now he needs to do it 2 more times, as now it's so much pressure at least coming off the shoulders of Hyunsu because he's done that first step.
Man, takes down World, gets his revenge in the same day. Earlier in the first phase, the ace match, World takes down Hyunsu on winding slopes, but now, finally, track selection for Hyunsu. He's looking to see where he will able to take down the upcoming members. Now, there are still 2 members left, so we do not know which racer will rise to the occasion. We'll wait to see what the track is first.
The track is going to be a huge boost for Hyunsu. The fact that he can pick it himself, even just mindset-wise, it's going to give him a lot of confidence as he takes his time to carefully discuss it with his teammates and the coach, and it feels like the decision has been made.
Just right at the end of the 30-second timer, it looks like it was an entire team effort as well as some of the other teammates gathering around, and wow, well, this is basically a challenge saying, hey, whoever comes out, it doesn't matter. And I like this choice, right? Because you don't know. You do not know which racer they will field. Go to a track that is traditional. Go to a track where really it's anybody's game. It's just about your foundational skills. Go to that track where once you win, now you know your opponent and you will have that track selection advantage. You have to think ahead for that. You have to think long term. If you are Hyunsu and Liiv SANDBOX, you will, if you win, take that to that last round. You're the one who's going to have track selection. And so you take things on to Extreme Stadium. It did look like it was Spear getting prepared. He's never entered the ace matches so far here in the KDL. And finally, we will see him play a 1v1 race in the team matches for the Kwangdong Freaks.
And when we interviewed Spear earlier in the day, he said he feels absolutely confident to step up to the plate when it's needed for his team and play out these ace matches. It would mean the world for Kwangdong Freaks if they're able to close it out here early on against Hyunsu, because that would mean that Kwangdong Freaks, they were able to win with still a man left in their pocket.
You mentioned it earlier, Peter. I mean, it's Kwangdong Freaks who still has more racers in the bank. However, if you lose this one, when we go to round 7, it's Hyunsu who gets to have that track selection advantage. So we shall find out. Will Spear be able to shut things down as we go to Glacier Extreme Stadium?
Off we go into round 6 of King of the Hill from phase 3. And if Hyunsu can win this one, he will be able to force out the final player from Kwangdong Freaks. And if Spear wins, that is going to be the victory locked in for Kwangdong Freaks.
Yeah, Spear currently holding the destiny of the Kwangdong Freaks in his hand, trying to bring home that trophy of Preseason 2, trying to claim that Kwangdong Freaks was absolutely the strongest team in the preseasons of KDL. Hyunsu! He recovers himself from that bump, and Spear actually thinks he has an advantage, but spins into the wall. The gap is too big, out of draft range. Once again, the pressure on the racer of Kwangdong Freaks.
Hyunsu is able to develop these leads through his baits. The mind games are so good from the captain of Liiv SANDBOX himself, trying to keep the dreams alive for his team. You can see Spear, he's making mistakes that's costing him speed, and he needs to do it because he needs to greed to catch up.
Yeah, just you can see the swift cuts, just trying to fill up whatever he has left in each boost gauge. He's trying to catch up, but Hyunsu, he's feeling comfy, still out of draft range, and he's boosting around every single corner, making sure he has one more in the bank so that when Spear catches up, he will be able to break away. Still one full boost ahead in the form of Hyunsu.
We can see right now Spear is about 55 meters behind Hyunsu, and Hyunsu has not been giving up any of this lead. We can see Spear now cutting some of that distance down with these aggressive cuts as we approach the final sections here.
Yeah, Hyunsu does need to watch out. Once we get into that hairpin, Spear is very close enough to definitely get one more draft in the very last jump. So Hyunsu currently saving up the double boost so he can start to spin around these hairpins, not give that timing. The draft comes in for Spear, but it's a little too early. He can't continue the acceleration, and he's not in range for the second one. Hyunsu plays this so smart as he does not make a single mistake, crosses the finish line, and keeps the Armada going forward. Liiv SANDBOX will take us to the very last round in this King of the Hill.
It is so awesome that the captain was able to step up to the plate when he was needed most. He was faced with the impossible task of having to take down World and then Spear. And now he's accomplished all that, forcing Kwangdong Freaks to reach into their pocket and bring out Sungbin.
All right, last track selection. Now suddenly things have flipped. While it was the Kwangdong Freaks leading, they could not close things out, and now track advantage for Hyunsu. Sure, he's had to do 2 races so far, but it's just another day for the captain of Liiv SANDBOX. Who or where will he take us to meet Sungbin, the last remaining Kwangdong Freaks racer?
Wherever it is that Hyunsu chose, it must feel so great right now. Hyunsu is riding on a high. He has all the momentum in his heels, whereas now the pressure is really applied for Kwangdong Freaks. We already know who the player is going to be, and the track is Zigzag Timberland.
Another classic, another track that we've seen so much in the preseasons of the KDL. And now all smiles gone on the side of Kwangdong Freaks as well. Momentum entirely on the side of Hyunsu. He's feeling the absolute speed and rush as he takes down the previous 2 racers, forces Sungbin to have to ride to the occasion.
And this is going to be the one final match here in phase 3 to determine it all. The results of the team victory on the backs of Hyunsu and Sungbin right now. It would be a miraculous story if Hyunsu is able to win here against Sungbin, win 3 rounds in a row, but for Sungbin it would be lovely as well to finally bring that victory back.
This is going to be the very last race of Preseason 2 here at the KDL. The very last race of the preseasons at all of the KDL. We go to Forest Zigzag Timberland. And they're off. Hyunsu versus Sungbin. Liiv SANDBOX in red. Kwangdong Freaks in blue, and you can just see the mind games already. The aggressive starts from both sides. Both of them losing a little bit of speed, but right now Sungbin starts to shoot ahead.
And keep in mind that this is a pretty significant lead, so Hyunsu, he definitely needs to play a lot of catch-up. He needs to go for the aggressive turns, and that's allowed Sungbin to have this boost gauge advantage.
Now, Sungbin, he's been watching the previous races. He knows how Hyunsu has taken away his teammates previously, and this track is no exception. So many twists and turns, the hairpins towards the end, lots of opportunities for Hyunsu to put pressure, to force these errors to come out from Sungbin.
And so far, Hyunsu, he's been staying behind, but still enough to draft when he needs to. Hyunsu has done a great job of recovering that big lead that Sungbin was able to build, and now Hyunsu himself, he's going to be able to take that first place for now.
Yeah, Hyunsu just waiting to see, and as Sungbin tries to slow down to gauge what Hyunsu's call is, he uses that draft to say, all right, this is my chance to get ahead for the time being. Now Hyunsu, he can try to play those mind games, but it's actually going to be Sungbin who forces the error out. He just swings right by Hyunsu. Now Hyunsu should have a chance to try to catch up as we enter the straightaway into lap 2, but it's going to take a little bit of extra swift cuts to maintain this boost advantage.
Both players are opting for that right now. Sungbin still trying to keep up this lead so that Hyunsu cannot get back in draft range, but Hyunsu, he's going to be able to pull it off. You look at the turns he's taking.
Yeah, he also used that boost right off of the jump. Gave him a little bit extra top speed, extra acceleration to maintain in the air. A slight bump, but it doesn't stop Hyunsu for the time being. Boost gauge equalized on both sides. Sungbin knows this is his race to take. He's far in the lead. The drafts are not going to come into play just yet. We enter the hairpin section in the next couple turns.
The difference in mindset right now, Sungbin, he's just playing his own game, trying to play perfect to not give any edge over Hyunsu. He needs to pull out some tricks up his sleeve because he is so far behind right now. He needs the draft opportunity.
Hyunsu's filling his boost gauge so well, but so is Sungbin. Sungbin's not playing relaxed at all. He knows that Hyunsu's the type of racer who can catch up at any time. And an excellent cut around the inner side of the corner puts Hyunsu into draft range. He gets one draft. He's now caught up. Should have one more opportunity as he tries to get in towards the last 500 meters. The draft gauge just not filling up as Sungbin continues to shoot forward. The boost comes into play 1 second earlier, and Sungbin brings home victory. Kwangdong Freaks will repeat their preseason run as they take the trophy once more.
The final soldier for Kwangdong Freeks, Sungbin, he's able to pull off a tall task of having to take down the captain of Liiv SANDBOX himself. The fact that Sungbin was able to have such a big lead throughout the whole race was pivotal because the mindset was able to give him such a calm victory.
What a race from both teams. But Sungbin, seeing what Hyunsu was able to do the previous 2 tracks and serving Hyunsu a taste of his own medicine, forcing the error out, will secure the very last round in this King of the Hill. And after a grueling 3 phases, Kwangdong Freaks crosses the stage, trying to console their opponents, but of course, it can't be all smiles. One team rises as the victor, as one team will go home with yet another defeat here in Preseason 2.
The fact that Liiv SANDBOX lost twice now in both preseasons in the finals to Kwangdong Freaks is heartbreaking, but for Kwangdong Freaks, it doesn't matter because now they get to take that trophy and an honorable victory that is so well-deserved. It was a tough battle to get here into the postseason. They struggled against the teams in the round robins, but it doesn't matter when you're able to pull through in the end.
Man, what an impressive feat here from the Kwangdong Freaks, and we will have a chance to hear from them as we get ready for the awards ceremony. We will be translating these live for you. And this is Caster Sung on stage. Now, after Preseason 1, you continue here in Preseason 2 with another absolute victory. Let's first get to meet them here on stage. First up, it's Cool. First of all, congratulations. Thank you. Now, during, compared to the round robin, and of course, you know, even previously in Preseason 1, today didn't look that easy. How was it for you? You know, I mean, Liiv SANDBOX, they had a roster change, but they're still such a difficult team, and they're still so strong. So this was a tough grand finals to prepare, but we were still able to play our game. Now, you know, looking at the grand finals, phase 1 and phase 2, both of them looked different than expectation. Kwangdong Freaks looked so strong in the item mode. Now, how was it for you? Is this exactly how you guys saw it happening? Well, for us, I mean, when it comes to speed mode, we've always been very, very good. And so we'll be honest, that's not what we focused on. Item mode is where we really, really practiced here to prep for the grand finals, and I think it definitely paid off. Yes, of course, after both winning Preseason 1 and 2, you guys have now proven yourselves and the value of Kwangdong Freaks. Now we move on to meet Spear. Now, I think a lot of people are probably curious when it comes to Phase 3. You know, you kind of waited to come out into the later rounds. Was that something you guys always planned ahead? No, that wasn't necessarily planned. But you know, if Sungbin won right away, I wouldn't have had a chance to race. So, you know, at that point. Oh, so was it your choice? Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I got in the race. Okay, well, you know, also looking at Preseason 2, you know, compared to Preseason 1, you were so aggressive. Now in Preseason 2, you've proven that that wasn't a fluke, that you were able to continue that type of aggressive play. Is this something that you've been building towards as your own brand? Well, for today, it didn't go really as I wanted, so I'm not quite sure. Sure, maybe today, but overall, during the preseason, overall, you looked very strong. So now looking towards the regular season, are you looking forward to build more of your style? When we go into the regular season, I will absolutely improve and show you even better matches to prove myself a bit more. We can see that you're still, you know, a bit miffed, but still, I mean, looking at just like that sign, that top speed, you're definitely reaching that point. Okay, now Songbin. Now, looking at Japan circuit earlier, you were able to, you know, split the opponents and then block Liiv SANDBOX when we kicked off Phase 1. Did that feel just absolutely exhilarating to get that win? I actually thought first place would be tough for our team. And, you know, I saw them trying to overtake me, and I was just trying to defend my own spot, but somehow I got pushed into first place with a little bit of luck. And then afterwards, you were the last racer coming in round 7 of the King of the Hill. And sure, we talk about how strong of an ace match racer you are, but that's such a high-pressure situation. And, you know, you skipped a lot of the tracks that you personally prefer. What were you thinking when you saw Zigzag Timberland show up? I mean, for me, no matter what the order was, I didn't personally really care. So I was more of the case of I'll let my, you know, racers, you know, my teammates take whatever tracks they wanted or even start things off. I was ready to be the first racer if we needed me to be, but, you know, I was the last one, so, you know, I didn't really think of it too much. No, you're right. I mean, Kwangdong Freaks is that team where you guys are technically all aces, so really anything could have worked, and it absolutely was the best decision. Now, World, you know, Phase 1, you did the same thing, and mine, Winding Soaps, it seems like this is your track when it comes to these 1v1s. I think you've got to be very satisfied. Well, I mean, yeah, we won, right? We're the champions, so yes, I'm very, very happy. And, you know, I just want to give a shout out that my teammates did so well. That's why we were able to win. You know, Preseason 2, overall, you know, a little bit difficult for the Kwangdong Freaks, but you were still able to get to the very end. You know, looking back on Preseason 2, what are your thoughts? And also a bit of a shout out to the fans that have been supporting you throughout. First of all, yes, our team, you know, of course, we had to go through a lot of things this preseason. And my teammates actually supported me so much, even when I was having trouble really staying focused and recovering my mental. And I know, you know, our team probably felt really bad about our performance of our item mode and the struggles we had, but they still stuck by me, and, you know, they were still very good about giving constructive criticism to each other. And you know, also, you know, I just want to give a shout out to Liiv SANDBOX for providing such an excellent and exciting match. And also to our coach as well. I mean, he went through a lot with us as well, so thank you so much. But last but definitely not least, to all the fans here and that support us, thank you so much. And, you know, we now look forward to the regular season. There's a little bit of time left, and during that time, we as Kwangdong Freaks will brush up all of our mistakes, and we'll try to accomplish 3 championships here in KDL this year. See that little pat from Sungbin. Yeah, I mean, I think we can all feel that, you know, you were holding those tears back, and I think a lot of fans know where that's coming from. But it's what was funny was that you were talking about that, you know, item mode seemed a little tough, and Sungbin just shook his head that it was all fine. But yeah, I mean, we even saw, you know, World, you were doing well today when it came to Clock Tower Crossing, so I think the teammates would like to give you a shout out as well in that item mode. Well, once again, Kwangdong Freaks, they take over, and they will be taking the title here of Preseason 2, and now we will get ready for the award ceremony. That was the winner's interview with our preseason back-to-back champions of Kwangdong Freaks. And I mean, Peter, you can see how much it meant for Kwangdong Freaks and World, especially as the captain, to try to keep the team together, bring home another victory.
For sure, it was such a tough road to get here to the team finals, and the fact that Kwangdong Freaks are able to pull it off in such a fashion against Liiv SANDBOX, being able to win in the King of the Hills, despite looking like Hyunsu, he took all the momentum. It's such a great story for Kwangdong Freaks.
Yeah, I mean, excellent just resilience coming out from Kwangdong Freaks, and you know, I mean, they talked about it during the interview as well. There's nothing to skirt around. It's very clear that the Kwangdong Freaks, they went through a lot this preseason, you know, not just the races, but not all the results they wanted and things outside of the game as well. However, they were able to overcome, they were able to keep their composure and focus on what they needed to, which, like Cole said, was that item mode. And meanwhile, on the other side, another great team that, you know, went through a lot. They went through these giant roster changes. They were still able to rise to the occasion and take that runner-up spot.
The runner-up spot is still a great achievement to get here in KDL because the competition is so fierce. You have so many teams that you have to get through to get here, and Liiv SANDBOX, just as you put it, going through problems of their own, but still being able to push Kwangdong Freaks to their absolute edge shows why Liiv SANDBOX has that long-lasting rivalry with Kwangdong Freaks.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Liiv SANDBOX and the Racers, you have to remember, you have this new formation of roster trying to challenge the Kwangdong Freaks who have been together all year long here in the KDL, and give it a little bit more time. Maybe next time. This time, you know, you took them to Phase 3. Earlier in Preseason 1, you lost 2-0. This time it's Phase 3 all the way down to Round 7. Maybe in the regular season, we'll see a different result.
Yeah, that's the great thing about KDL. We just finished up 2 preseasons, and now the official league is waiting for us. So the excitement and the hype keeps building for our teams, especially for our 2-time champion, Kwangdong Freaks.
Yeah, of course. You know, we always like to emphasize, yeah, it's just a preseason. It doesn't hold in the record books when we talk about record wins and things like that once the regular season starts. But still, what an absolutely impressive feat. Back-to-back 2023 preseason KDL champions. They will be given their medal here, going over to Sungbin first, of course, the one who brought home that ace victory in Round 7. And basically this means that they were not only the very first team to say that they were champions in the KDL, even though it's the preseason, but they are absolutely the team to beat as everyone prepares for the regular league.
This is why this roster here is so beloved by many fans here in KDL. They're showing to be so strong despite their 4-man lineup, not needing a 5th player for that item mode. And the reason why is because each players here individually shine in every aspect of Kart Rider.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to be so dominant in speed mode that you just hard focus on item mode when you need it, and you're able to turn things around today, still winning a lot of those speed mode tracks, an absolutely impressive feat here from the Kwangdong Freaks. Of course, just now we had announcer Sheehan coming out, Lila, to give the awards to our champions. Caster Sung announcing our champions once again on stage, and to all the global racers, once again, the dominant team of the KDL preseason are the Kwangdong Freaks.
I can't believe it, Will, that Kwangdong Freaks was able to pull this off 2 seasons in a row, but when you take a look at their matches, the domination of World and Ace matches, and the team speed always going in the way of Kwangdong Freaks, it is no surprise.
Yeah, a very, very impressive feat, and just gets you really excited to see, can they continue that when they get ready for the regular season? Liiv SANDBOX is looking stronger as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the preseasons here of the KDL. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we take a short break, a couple weeks, and then we should be getting ready for the regular season. We hope to see you there.
Take my hand, can I have this dance? Turn around, you know you wanna do it. Spin me round and round. I wanna be out on the street, watching you dance closer to me. Won't you take my hand? Can I have this dance? I wanna be under the lights, watching the stars flickering bright. Won't you take my hand? Can I have this dance? I wanna be out on the street, watching you dance closer to me. Won't you take my hand? Can I have this dance? I wanna be under the lights, watching the stars flickering bright. Won't you take my hand? Can I have this dance? I wanna be out on the street, watching you dance closer to me. Won't you take my hand?
이번 시즌 가장 열심히 준비했던 시즌인데 많이 아쉽게 끝나서 다음 시즌을 더 열심히 준비할 수 있게 된 계기가 된 것 같습니다.
성공적으로 끝마친 것 같아서 만족감도 있지만 결과가 그렇게 좋은 건 아닌 것 같아서 아쉬움도 좀 남는 것 같아요.
많은 기대와 꿈을 가지고 이번에 다시 복귀하게 되었는데 어떻게 보면 새로운 도전일 수 있었지만 좋게 마무리된 것 같아서 참 다행이라고 생각합니다.
이번 시즌 락스에 들어와서 귀여운 동생들이 2명 있어가지고 많이 재밌게 리그한 것 같습니다.
팀의 막내인데 형들이 잘 챙겨줘서 고마웠어요.
시즌 1 때는 그렇게 좋지 않은 성적을 가지고 탈락을 했었는데 저희가 포스트 시즌을 확정짓게 돼서 그 순간이 가장 짜릿하고 기분이 좋았던 것 같아요.
호준 형이랑 해결해봤던 게 재밌었던 것 같아요. 경기를 지긴 했는데 그걸 계기로 좀 배운 것도 많았고 재밌었잖아요. 그래서 그게 가장 기억에 많이 남는 것 같아요.
미래라는
리더십을 좀 더 많이 키웠으면 좋겠고 전 주장이었던 인수 형처럼 팬분들에게 따뜻하게 대해주는 마음을 많이 배웠으면 좋겠어.
때론 좌절할 때도 있겠지만 포기하지 말고 끝까지 화이팅 했으면 좋겠어.
영훈아, 지금 이제 스피드 폼이 많이 다시 되살아나고 있는데 아직 앞으로 갈 길이 많으니까 다시 죽지 말고 지금 하는 것보다 더 열심히 해서 더 잘 달리는 선수가 되자.
미래에 있을 준현아, 개가천선에서 올바른 사람이 되도록 노력했으면 좋겠고 응원할게. 파이팅.
이번 시즌 저희 아우라팀 많이 응원해 주셔서 감사하고 다음 시즌에는 더 좋은 모습 보여드릴 테니까 앞으로도 많은 응원 부탁드리겠습니다. 감사합니다.
제가 어떻게 보면 데뷔한 지 얼마 안 된 신인인데 과분한 사랑 주셔서 너무 감사하고요. 앞으로 더 재밌는 경기들 많이 보여드릴 테니까 많은 응원 보내주시면 감사하겠습니다.